Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Thursday, February 26, 2026 open session of the Board of Carroll County Commissioners. As we always do, we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silent reflection. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So first up on the agenda, we have Priority Carroll, and Commissioner Kyler, I believe you kick us off this week.
Huh. I tell you. Wakefield Valley Park had a ribbon cutting, and maybe, I'm not sure if they had an open house later or some public was there. Great event, great, loved getting to talk to the city people and all the other people interested in it. And it's, we talk about wrecking parks and fields and parks and whatever, and we tend to forget that one of the most requested things is walking trails and walking paths. I met some people, one of them, I think was from Gettysburg. They come there to walk the trails, and you know, that's important to people. It's a beautiful building. And I talked to the contractor that was working on the other building, and it was great. I didn't have time for any of the snacks because I talked too much, but it was fun. Tuesday night I went to Hampstead Lions Club, and we had been trying to schedule a time where I could just come talk with them. And as it turned out, because of the billboard consolidation discussions, I mentioned that. I sent that to Manchester, Hampstead, and North Carroll Business Alliance. I think the Business Alliance talked about it, and I sent them backup information, talked about it at their meeting. Hampstead, very diverse group. One of them hates billboards every place, and others thought this was great, and we need to better control. So it'll be interesting. Daphne Daly went with me, and they requested. They said, "Well, let's talk about billboards, and if you have time, you can talk too." Well, I didn't, but Daphne did a great job explaining it and answering questions, and I encouraged them. We don't have a public hearing set yet, but if you can attend, send emails. And so some of them told me yesterday they're not ready yet, but they're sending emails. So, and Hampstead Lions, a great group. They have their ball fields there, and they do Hampstead Day, and they do a lot of good things for the community. So it was really great meeting them and talking to them. MACO, we had Rural Counties Coalition on Monday, and the Legislative Committee and some subcommittees yesterday. Got to meet 3 or 4 delegates in Annapolis and one secretary, and talked with them and did the meetings. And Pam's gonna give us some updates. I think it's a little bit of a weird session and hasn't really gelled. MACO talked about maybe not having a meeting next week because there might not be much change, but my opinion is some things are going to change. We'll see what, and Pam may mention it. MACO can oppose bills, can support with amendments, can take no position with letters, can oppose and still send a letter, but if you oppose, you don't have much of a voice. And so I think we've got a couple that right now say support with amendments, but I think the Legislative Committee is going to need to look at them if we don't get the amendments and maybe oppose. And as always, there's some weird stuff down there. And then lastly, wrestling. I mentioned that the last couple weeks, County tournament was held at Westminster on Saturday. South Carroll won it. And it was a good competitive tournament. And regionals are all over the place this Saturday, and then states are the next Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And includes girls, and they call them co-ed because girls can compete on the boys' team, but boys can't compete on the girls' team. And all the tournaments have both things. And Carroll County does a JV tournament also on Friday night. Now in the postseason regionals and states, it's no longer JV. So again, congratulations to South Carroll. I think they've won it 4 or 5 times in a row. It was a well-run tournament, and it was good for the kids. And we do a lot of stuff that's good for the kids in Carroll County. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Good morning. As Commissioner Kyler mentioned, I know, I think it was myself, Commissioner Kyler, and Commissioner Krebs were all in attendance at Wakefield last Friday. Great to see that building updated and improved upon. It's going to be a wonderful opportunity for the community as a whole. The center offers a large indoor and outdoor spaces. There's a large multi-purpose room, pavilion space, and 2 meetings room, which will support everything from community gathering to local events and private events as well. I think this is a huge, meaningful investment in our community. As most of us know, it's very difficult to find locations either for meetings or even private or public events. So this will definitely be a huge improvement upon that. Also on February 13th, unfortunately, after a short illness, we lost at the Carroll County Farm Museum the Red Devon ox known as Jim. Jim and Jack were iconic ambassadors of the Farm Museum that arrived in 2015 from Maine and became focal points of the museum's mission to preserve and promote history of agriculture in Carroll County. On site, they captivated many visitors by demonstrating the strengths of their massive bodies by pulling heavy loads and showing their ability to plow the fields and work as a yoke team.
Who's that farmer wearing the tie?
I don't know. That would be what I was getting to right now. Back in October of 2025, my good colleague, Commissioner Vigliotti, was in attendance during the Traditional Arts Festival, and he presented a proclamation honoring both Jim and Jack's 10th anniversary at the Farm Museum. So I just wanted to mention that, as I know a lot of people in the community, as well as a lot of kids, really enjoy getting to go out and interact and see and learn about the animals. So it is definitely a loss, and we will see where we go from there. As to the oxen, I know we still have Jack is still there. He will be there, but we will see what the future holds for that. But clearly something that was rather iconic for the past decade plus in Carroll County. Also just want to mention real briefly the Carroll Magazine 2026 Reader's Choice Awards. That's open now. You can submit your picks through April 30th of 2026. Great opportunity to honor your local businesses and other establishments in the community and make known of them. Last night I attended the Carroll County Public Library board meeting here in Westminster. It was a good board meeting, a lot of great conversation, discussions as to where the library's headed this next year. One thing that did kind of catch me off guard in a good way, which I don't know if it'll surprise my colleagues, Exploration Commons has now been around and open for 5 years, so we're on half a decade. And we're the only county in the state that has that type of a facility. They're working to add additional opportunities for people to utilize it because cooking classes and everything else over there just constantly sell out due to the demand and interest. Another really wonderful thing that was mentioned last night pertaining to our library system is the Carroll Book Fest, which will become a festival which will be coming in the fall of 2026. So I have, as it would be appropriate, bookmarks for my colleagues regarding the upcoming book festival in 2026 of the fall. Also just wanted to mention and highlight on this, as we all know, it's February, and February also is Black History Month, and I'd be absolutely remiss if I didn't mention a little bit about that in our community. Recently just had the honor of sitting down with Bill Hudson from the former Students and Friends of Robert Moton, which Robert Moton was opened in 1930 and was the first black high school in the county. It's a key site recognized for educational history. There's a podcast online on the county website if anyone's interested in listening to that, but also wanted to talk about some of the other really interesting things that sometimes seem to get lost in the cracks. One thing specifically I'll mention is the Thaddeus Stevens GAR post, which was the Grand Army of the Republic, which by today's standards would be like an American Legion. That was in New Windsor and was a significant African-American Union veteran organization out of New Windsor. There's not a lot of details that exist on that. There's some photos, there's some artifacts, but in many ways, we're not even really certain what building they met in over in that area, but clearly was a part of the community. And just, it may be Black History Month, but it's a good time to learn about Black history and our history as a whole anytime, be it any day of the year. And I kind of segues into my last thing, which is this Saturday we will be having the History Day and History Expo at Winters Mill High School on February 28th from 9 to 1. There will be a lot of exhibits to see, as well as a wide array of our nonprofits that will be in attendance. And this year's theme is Revolution, Reaction, and Reform in History. And I think it'll be a good opportunity to come out and see what our schools are doing with the kids, as well as our nonprofits. And that's all for me. Thank you.
Very well
Can
said,
I add
Commissioner.
one more thing? Your photo and your comments.
Yes.
The committee's working right now on July 25th, Night at the Farm Museum, which is going to be a takeoff of Night at the Museum, which you guys may have seen the movie. There's going to be animals there. There's going to be all kinds of stuff there. So you might want to mark your calendars for July 25th and save it. It's going to be a great event there.
I think so. They pulled me into that subcommittee, so
Yeah, good.
thank you very much, both of you. Commissioner
you.
Garrett?
Good morning, Carroll County. Just one brief announcement for all of those residents in District 4, my district. I'll be holding a town hall meeting on March 11th at the Mount Airy Senior Center from 6 to 8 p.m. I hope if you've got questions or concerns, I hope you can attend and bring them with you, and I will be sure to answer your questions, address your concerns, and looking forward to being able to see everybody out there on March 11th. And so there'll be further information coming out via email and some press releases, and I'll make sure I post it prominently on social media as well. And that's all for me.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Garrett. Commissioner Krebs?
Thank you. I don't want to be left out about talking about Wakefield Valley. I'll just give a different perspective. Wakefield Valley was a golf course for many, many years, and it went financially had some challenges, so it shut down many years ago. And that event space was used by a lot of people in the community. It was a place to go, have lots of meetings. So it was sorely missed, but it sat empty for many, many years. And I give the town of Westminster kudos because they got together and they put together a plan, and they really wanted to take the property owner over. And they told some of this story at the event. But the person that owned it wanted to build a lot of houses, and they didn't want a lot of houses. So they didn't have the zoning for it. It was a golf club, and they kept thinking, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? They put together a master plan. I'm not sure if I have this in the right order. Talking to the community, what do you want in the center of this beautiful, beautiful piece of property? And they all wanted to have the event space back, and they wanted to have the passive hiking trails and all the stuff that goes along with it. So they put together a very nice, comprehensive plan of how they wanted to do it, what do they want to do. And then they need to figure out how to pay for it. So they were able to get the property paid for by working out a deal that was very innovative. I won't get into the details of it. Very innovative deal that did not cost them anything, and they were able to acquire the property. So that was a big deal. Once they had that, how do we pay for the infrastructure? Town didn't have the money, so as the towns are very good at, they applied for money. The council people called myself during COVID and said, please come on out, see this property, see our master plan, and that they all were there. And we had the Secretary of Department of Natural Resources come out. She drove up from Cambridge. I guess it was 2021, I believe. And she saw their plan. She saw what they had envisioned there, and that how they had worked it out financially. And supportive. So based on her seeing it, and seeing's worth a lot, sometimes a piece of paper doesn't tell the real story, but the people that were there and their enthusiasm and their plan and the community participation in what they wanted there for their in the middle of their town, they awarded them $1 million out of the Department of Natural Resources budget, which got them jump-started, and then they applied for a bunch of community development grants. And I think they said it was $2.3 million from the state altogether. So the delegation, District 5 delegation, all worked toward that as well. But it allowed them to put this event center on, and they said, I believe they said they put no money into it, or little, which is a great innovative way to use their energies, and I applaud them for that. And it's something everyone can use. It's a beautiful space, meeting space, plus just it's a beautiful campus to hike on and do other things. So I applaud them for all the hard work. You know, town council people get paid a whole lot, like what, $1,000 or something a year? But they do it because they love their community, and they really did a good job. So I wanted just to give them kudos for leveraging those opportunities. On Tuesday, I visited Springfield Hospital Center. Been there many, many times in the past when it was in my district, but I have not been there for a while. And they have, it's a state-operated psychiatric hospital in Sykesville. Started off as 1,000 acres, in 1890, and they used to have 3,000 patients there. And now they've whittled down, they're not quite 300 yet, but it's a state-operated psychiatric hospital, and it used to be a working farm. The farmers out there, they grew their own crops. They had they did lots of stuff on the farm. They had their own dairy there. So the people that were under care actually had jobs to do, and they did them on the farms. Unfortunately, in the 50s and 60s, they didn't want folks working, and federal law trumped it, and you couldn't work anymore. They had to close it down, and it sort of shrunk down, and services changed. But it provides long-term care and acute mental health services for adults from several Maryland counties, including care for the deaf as well. And they have 700 employees. They're one of the largest employers in Carroll County on a 350-acre, beautiful, beautiful campus. And they're, again, one of the largest employers in Carroll County. Most of the patients there today are forensic, which means that they're court-ordered. They have some type of run-in with the law, and they're there to become mentally stabilized and competent. In the old days, they used to go there and they weren't court-ordered. It was more robust. Now those folks are living out in the community, and they're on some type of maintenance medication to help them be able to live in the community. The new CEO down there, Jordan Butler, replaced our legendary Paula Langmead, who was the CEO for decades, and she was a wonderful asset to our community, not just at Springfield, but she was involved in many, many things in Carroll County. Great leader, wonderful lady, but she retired, and Jordan took over. And then his assistant is Nicole Hosley, project manager, and both of them live in Carroll County. They both live in Commissioner Gurren's district, one in Taylorsville and one in Mount Airy, and very enthusiastic new leadership at Springfield. They have 239 patient beds there, both acute and long-term, which means sometimes you're there for a short time, sometimes you're there for longer, and they're in there for recovery until they get stabilized and have competency. They opened in 1896, and they were once the largest mental health hospital on the whole East Coast. And they downsized, as I said, after deinstitutionalization, but it has always been a welcome neighbor in South Carroll. I mean, that's been there before any of us, and most people would say, not in my backyard. We don't want a prison, which we have. We don't want a drug treatment facility, which we have on campus. We don't want a mental psychiatric hospital. But that area's grown up with it. We welcome those uses, and people volunteer. They used to volunteer there, so it's just something that's natural, comes natural. The prison, the drug treatment facility, and the psychiatric hospital all on the same campus. But after arriving on this beautiful campus, I had to note that there was all these new trees planted, 18,000 newly planted trees all over the campus. And I'm like, what's going on here? Well, the BGE planted them as part of a goal in the state of Maryland of planting 5 million new trees. And it reminded me that there's lots of opportunities to explore for finding new sites for reforestation of trees. We talked about that a couple weeks ago, about there's not many tree banks left, and when you disturb an acre of land, you have to replant an acre of land of trees, and it's expensive. They used to do it up in these tree banks up in Western Maryland. Now they're not doing that anymore because I'm saying many of them are moving to putting solar panels in because it's more lucrative than planting trees for the future. So there's not a lot of places to replant these trees, so the costs have gone up for an acre of land to about right now, if you did it through the county, it'd be around $32,000. So they somehow, BG was able to put it on the campus at Springfield. So I'm hoping that we can find some more opportunities to think outside the box and find a solution for our folks not just a homeowner, but even anybody that disturbs land for any kind of building. It just drives the cost of housing up. And if we cannot find a more cost-effective way to bank those trees. And I could have stayed longer and visited the campus, but I had duty called because I had to take my 2 grandchildren to visit their new baby sister in the hospital. So I have a new grandchild, number 8. Annie Elizabeth Krebs was born that morning on Tuesday morning. And so now I have 4 boys and 4 girls, so that's exciting.
Congratulations.
It for me.
Congratulations.
Thanks for listening to me twice say that.
Lots of Christmas presents.
Oh, yeah.
Well, thank you very much for that, Commissioner Krebs. Just 2 very brief things from me today, as we have some very important guests for the next section of our agenda. So first of all, thank you to all of our departments and especially Public Works, Roads, Facilities for making sure that we successfully and expeditiously navigated the winter storm earlier this week. I've gotten plenty of positive comments from citizens, including some who have just moved here, and they're incredibly impressed with how seriously we take storms in this county. And that is a credit to the men and women who work for the county. Second of all, as Commissioner Kyler has alluded to, just a brief note on this being the 60th anniversary of the Carroll County Farm Museum, all kinds of incredible events, programs, and activities are being planned. And as I alluded to earlier as well, I've joined a subcommittee for one such event. But the Farm Museum is central to who we are, both our history and our heritage and our way of life. Farming is inseparable from the county, and we are blessed to have so many men and women, and as we're about to see, young people who are committed to such a crucial and important way of life. And with that, I believe we have a proclamation for Future Farmers of America Week. Commissioner Gordon?
Yes, if anybody from the Future Farmers of America would like to come up, we'd love to have you up front here. Good morning. I'm gonna let you all start if you don't mind. So.
All right. Hi, my name is Estella Gover. I'm the chapter president of the Manchester Valley FFA chapter.
Hi, I'm Emma Weber. I'm the chapter president of the Westminster chapter.
Hi, I'm Emily Bartolin, and I'm the chapter president of the South Carroll chapter.
Hello, I'm Patrick Barber. I'm the junior advisor of the Francis Scott Key chapter.
Hello, I'm Eli Barber. I'm the junior advisor at the Winters Mill chapter.
Hello, I'm Claire Subrzinski, and I'm the president of the Century chapter.
Good morning to all of you, and welcome.
Good morning.
It's quite an honor to have you all here today. We have a proclamation for you. So this is for National Future Farmers of America Week, February 21 through February 28th. Whereas the National Future Farmers of America FFA organization has designated February 21st, 2026 through February 28, 2026 as National FFA Week, and the National FFA organization and agricultural education provide a strong foundation for the youth of America, supporting the future of the food, fiber, and natural resources. And the FFA promotes premier leadership, personal growth, and career success among its members. Furthermore, agricultural education and the FFA play a crucial role in ensuring a steady supply of young professionals to meet the growing demands in the science, business, and technology of agriculture. And the FFA motto, learn to do, doing to learn, earning to live, living to serve, gives purpose and direction to students who actively engage in agricultural education. The organization also promotes citizenship, volunteerism, patriotism, and cooperation. And the Board of Carroll County Commissioners proudly recognizes the Maryland FFA Association as the state agricultural youth leadership organization, which consists of nearly 3,000 student members across 50 FFA chapters, 7 of which are in Carroll County. Now, therefore, we, the Board of Carroll County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim February 21st through February 28, 2026 as National FFA Organization Week, adopted this 26th day of February 2026, and it's signed by all 5 of the Board of County Commissioners. So I'll open that if any of you all.
Well, you guys, and you introduced yourselves,
Yes.
and that's great. Can you introduce some of the people with you who or you'd rather not?
Oh, we can. So I'll introduce, in the back in the black jacket, looking pretty stern back there. That is my advisor for Manchester Valley, Mr. Aaron Guyman. And then Leslie, right? And then next to that, we have Miss Leslie, and what is your position, Miss Leslie? Career Development Program Specialist. She is our Career Development Program Specialist, and then next to that is Mr. McNett, and he is the Assistant Supervisor for Career and Tech. And then I believe Mr. Eccles is back here, and that is Mr. McNett's big boss.
I'd like to also say my mom is here. Ashley Barber.
Always good to have Lily.
I just want to ask,
Smart move. Smart move, Eli.
thank Mom. You're all in ags. Any of you plan to do a career in agriculture, and if so, what?
I don't want to start this time.
Okay, I'll start. I'm a senior this year, so I'm graduating this year, and I am going straight into agriculture in the show horse world because I got offered a full-time job.
That's
when
awesome.
I graduate. So.
Great. Anybody else?
Anybody else want to share?
Okay. I plan to go to a four-year college and then major in agricultural business management, and then hopefully own my own veterinary practice in the future.
Wow.
Awesome.
Thank you. We just read about so many families, farms in the country don't have people to take over and stay involved in ag. And I think that's one of the reasons we have this program, is so that you guys get a taste of it, not just from, if you're on the farm, you have that taste, but you see there's so many career-related opportunities. And I want to thank Career and Tech and thank Mr. Eccles. You've matured since the last time I saw you. You used to be a teacher on a cart in Liberty High School and have to push it around. Is that right? Years ago, or years ago, when he was new, it was so overcrowded he didn't have a classroom, so he had to take all his stuff on a cart and push it through the hallways to get to the next class because he didn't have a spot. But that's what they do with our new teachers. But now he's in the beautiful new Career in Tech, and I still have not been to visit, so thank you. But thank you all, and ag's a great field to be in, and I hope many of you take that opportunity.
Did anybody else want to add anything else? What you want to do in the future? What got you into FFA in the first place?
I'd say for me, getting into FFA is I'm the third generation at Francis Scott Key, and all the generations of my family have been in FFA. So I felt the need that I had to be in FFA, and I'm happy I felt that need because I've got a lot of opportunities out at FFA.
That's awesome.
Excellent.
Oh,
I would just like to say I'm actually a first generation. None of my family really participated much in ag, both growing up in Baltimore County. So when we moved to Carroll County and I started high school, it was a really big thing that I definitely wanted to be a part of. And it definitely, FFA specifically, has definitely brought me so many opportunities, such as being here today with you guys. So I owe everything to FFA.
I got a question I didn't know. So do you still have the classes at your individual schools, or do you go to Career and Tech for it, or
So
both?
I currently, I'm taking my last ag class. I'm a senior, so I'm in the Case Business Research program. So that's the class I'm currently taking back at my home school. And then I actually do research and development, again, back at the Tech Center. So I dabble in a little bit of everything.
Thank you.
I'm in a bit of a different situation because the class she's taking, I'm also in, but it's not offered at my school currently, so I actually travel to Winters Mill to take it.
Okay, so we share. Anybody else? No, it's nice to be innovative for that. That's good.
I took that business research class last year, and then I completed my program with an internship this fall.
Great.
And I'm so glad you guys came forward. Those guys in the back, if we let them talk, we'd be here till noon. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for being here. You've heard it. The citizens of Carroll County have heard this time and time again. We are a rural county, and we like it that way, and we want to keep it that way. And you are who's going to make that happen. You know, your generation, younger folks coming up, and Commissioner Krebs mentioned there's so much going on in ag right now. It's always evolving, obviously, and then we're doing our part up here to protect that legacy as well. So thank you all for taking up that mantle, picking up that torch and running with it.
I would agree with all of my colleagues' comments, and I'll just say this. I know we hear it all the time, but, people in a lot of places don't really understand ag and where food comes from, and that is just absolutely mind-boggling to me as an individual. It's not a criticism on them, but, we hear about food insecurity. We talk about having open space, obviously clean water, and just, good, wholesome land, and that's something we've done very well in Carroll County for generations, and just want to thank you all for keeping that moving forward. I really appreciate that.
So if you guys are ready, we will do a picture. We should probably stay up here because they have a crowd. And Ted, why don't you guys all come up too?
They forgot to introduce Miss Diana too, Economic Development. Emma.
Diana, why don't you come up too?
Yeah, come on up, guys.
Right there.
We're going in the front.
You're welcome. I love you.
Everybody gets a cup.
Oh, thank you.
Aaron, get the picture.
Thank you very much, Estella.
Hey, thank you very much.
So if you email it to me, then I'll have it.
Yeah, you come up too. Come on up.
I am not, no, I'm not being the only parent, no. These are just all my kids.
Yeah.
Like, literally, like, I found out about this last night, so I had to be here. Good job, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for all you guys do.
Thank you so much. Good seeing you. Thank you very much.
I don't think any difference. I got your granddad.
Do you?
Yeah, sure did.
Stella, good seeing you as always.
I think I've seen them all before.
Ted, good seeing you, brother. Good luck.
Oh, you're adopted. So you have different names on it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Don. Nice to Don, sir, as usual. Again.
I'll give you another handshake.
Take care. Great seeing you. Great meeting you.
Yeah, very fancy. So up next on our agenda for item number 2, we have our legislative update with Pam Meister. Pam, good morning. Good to see you as always.
Good morning.
Good morning. And thanks for all of your patience with us as always.
Oh, sure. Thank you. We are at the point of session over the next few weeks where things are going to start moving out of committee. We're going to start to see amendments. So it's kind of the devil's in the details time of year. So in addition to getting emails from me asking you if you support a particular bill or want to weigh in, you're going to also potentially hear from me if something changes that we may want to address. A good example of that, which I did not alert you to because it was very technical and not a big deal, was our unpaid property tax bill received a favorable report with amendments out of committee and actually has passed third reader and is now going to cross over, which is great. But there were technical amendments just to rewrite the purpose paragraph that were really simple. But sometimes these amendments are much more critical in nature, and it may be something that I need your opinion on. So just stay tuned because that nuance may come through at this point of session. I'm going to be leaving here as soon as this is over for Annapolis today because that same bill, unpaid property tax, is in the House. So I'll be testifying for that as well and hopefully see that move forward. So we're making progress, which is great. We have crossover coming up March 23rd. So in advance of crossover, you're just going to see all the bills get heard in committee, get considered by committee. So some things we'll still have hearings on and want to weigh in on, but we also may just want to submit letters. So even if it's something that we've already submitted on, if we see it going in a particular direction or just have other thoughts, let me know, and we can do that. I'm still going through emails and I have lots of lists of everything I've been sending you all. So I'm going to be following up with each of you between today and the next day or so for anything I haven't heard from you on. Recognize that I know there's a ton going through, but it's just, and if I miss something, please excuse me there, because there's a ton of emails and I just want to be diligent and make sure I get your opinions reflected accurately. But I did hear from a majority of you, and I want to thank you for that. Delegate Tomlinson had asked us to weigh in on a number of bills, which I heard from a majority of you. So absent hearing from somebody that you don't want your name on this, I will be circulating letters in the next day or so of support for the 3 bills that I emailed you about last night. In addition to that, we have a few bills that Delegate Rose has asked us about, and I have not heard from everyone. So please stay tuned for that email because I would like to get back to her like ASAP on those issues, and I will remind you what those are just in case you need that later today, hopefully, or tomorrow, depending on when I get out of Annapolis, because you never know with the hearings. The other thing that's really important, the thing that's kind of like, it's not really keeping me up at night, but if anything were keeping me up at night right now is with the budget. Although I know that we have, the budget office really monitoring this and doing a lot of this, I just want to raise the reoccurring issue, and Commissioner Kyler, please feel free to weigh in if you have anything to add about all the cost shifts to local government. I think that we saw this last year, and we're seeing things proposed in the BRFA, but, at our MACO meetings, Michael Sanderson brought this up really well recently and said that there are other shifts that just aren't as apparent, aren't as obvious, that are maybe in a particular policy bill or seem smaller. And there are some things that just aren't going to budge and other things that could. And I know we'll weigh in when we have a full picture for the BRFA and some of these other bills, as we have in the past, assuming that your positions haven't changed. But I just want you to be mindful and think about this so that we can put some really solid talking points together and anything related specific to Carroll, because I think given what's happening, from the trickle down from the federal government to the state and then to the local, everyone's in a crunch and they're looking for solutions and there just may not be obvious ones. So in addition to saying, here's how it's going to impact Carroll County, if you have proposed solutions or ideas, please let me know, because that's the conversation that the counties are having collectively about how to advocate for some of these shifts either to be minimized or to be different or to be deferred. But even the deferral concerns me, in the sense of we can't always just put it off because later we'll get here. So I'm raising this as just food for thought, because most of what I'm seeing is just similar conversations about, local control and then shifting funds. And it's something that ultimately, I think, in some ways is going to fall, on the locals, sometimes without even knowing it till it's too late to weigh in. So I think we have to have the broader conversations of, what else can we do, but also what's most important to protect, because we're not going to protect everything. That's just the reality. But I wanted to raise that as like an overarching theme today, because we're at that point where the budget's going to have to pass, the BRFA is going to have to pass, some of these policy issues are going to go through, and we may or may not be able to do certain things, but this is where we could potentially say things to our state delegation and ask them to weigh in and help mitigate some of the potential harm on the things that we want to protect most in Carroll, but also be maybe even thought leaders in solutions if you have ideas. And, I know Commissioner Krebs, you have a long history in Annapolis, and maybe you'll have some ideas that come to mind about what else to say in this argument, because it just feels like it's frustrating everyone. I don't think there's sometimes you feel like there's sides in all of this. I think everyone's just trying to solve a problem without great solutions. So just wanted to raise that this week, because that's what's been on my mind, besides the individual issues. But I'll pause before I move on. Anything anyone wants to say or ask about before I go on to the next?
I want to just ask a couple. On the first one, on the property tax, and you said that has some technical changes.
Yes.
I would suggest sending it to the controller first, or even let her look at it from her point of view, because she's the technical person. I mean, you can copy us as well, but, I mean, all of us don't necessarily know what the technical part of it means, and then if she looks at it, then she can like say yes or no, and then
It was just the purpose paragraph. Like there was a word like that meant the opposite. Like it,
as long as it's, you said it could be technical, or could be meaningful. If it's
it
technical.
was not technical. I'm sorry. I meant administrative. Like I used the wrong
Okay,
word.
that's
I
fine.
apologize.
If it's anything that has any kind of context, I would just go to her first.
Absolutely.
With the, and is that cross-filed? You said it passed?
Yes.
So
No, that has not passed. That today is the hearing for the cross file.
is it cross-filed, or is it just going to pass over like it is?
Both.
Just make sure you mention that this has to be changed, and
Yes.
you want to conform it with the other one, and it should go.
I'm going to give them a copy of what.
Just say we want
was
to
amended.
conform it with the House bill that passed, and they'll just pass the House bill.
Absolutely.
Okay, on the two you talked about was Delegate Rose's on eminent domain, and also Chris Tomlinson's, and obviously that has to do with the transmission lines. And did you send us that already?
I have not sent anything outside of you all. I've just sent it to you all for consideration
Okay,
last
so
night.
I think that's important to support them. Now, when you send these to the committees, do you send them to the delegation as well?
Yes.
All of them?
I'm going to be sending them a packet of everything to date that you all have supported, so they have that. And then anything else moving forward, we'll also make sure they have.
I would just suggest every time we send a letter out, just, you got them in a group, send it to them, because it gives them talking points, and it also lets them know what we're taking a stand on. So I would just send them as they come, because it goes really fast, and then
Okay.
they will have it right. I mean, I used to clip it right in my computer on that bill, and then it was right there.
Okay.
And then we came up like, oh, the Carroll County Commissioners think this, and here's why, and it would give us our arguments.
Okay.
And on the bill, it's definitely helpful, because sometimes you don't know.
Sure.
On the bill about all the transfers of things, this is significant, and one of the talking points, I think sometimes the legislature and maybe the governor that don't like the president, they keep talking about all this stuff that's getting shifted down to the states. It's true. However, what I see is a little bit of a difference, and this is where I think we got to, so then they're shifting stuff down to the counties. But on the federal side, the stuff that they're shifting is stuff that the state really controls, and the federal government just was paying, like Medicaid. Medicaid used to be a 50-50 split. You both had skin in the game. And so the state sort of cared about checking up and making sure people were still legitimate, should still be on the rolls, whatever, or were here legally. All those things. The states had skin in the game, because it was half of their budget. I mean, half of it was their budget. Under the Affordable Care Act, how many years has that been? 10, 15 years, whatever that was. One of the things that changed, in order to incentivize the states to sign up for the Affordable Care Act and to get involved with it, they said, if you sign up for Affordable Care Act, the Obamacare, we will give you 90% on all your Medicaid. And the states will only pay 10%, we'll pay 90%. Well, that was a huge, huge amount of money. It's hundreds of millions of dollars or more that the states now say, oh, gosh, we don't have to pay this anymore. So it was sort of I don't know, a nice word for bribe, but it was sort of a bribe to get the states to sign up, and they almost could not resist it because of the money that was involved. That was supposed to disappear, that 90-10 split, go back to 50-50, the historical split. And what happened over time, states became very lax in their redeterminations and their determinations on, because why you get 10 cents in the dollar, why not just let it go through? And you're seeing that around the country, where they're going into Minnesota and looking and seeing people that should not be getting it. Well, that's because of the lax enforcement, because they only had 10% skin in the game. So what I guess my point is, when they talk about the state, they're sending it back because it always was 50-50, and it forces the states to have skin in the game. They run the programs. They determine eligibility. Each state decides. So it's not exactly, I don't know all the other stuff that's shifted, but when you really look at it, it belonged to the states because the states are deciding how to spend it. The thing that's different with the state that I see is on these things they're shifting, like the pensions and the Board of Elections and all the early voting stuff, and we have to, Department of Assessment and Taxation, there's a whole list, and
Sure.
Ted Zaleski can get that to you.
Yes, I have.
We have no control over those things. They tell us when voting has to be, how many hours has to be, so our costs just keep going up, up, up. Pensions, teacher pensions, we have no control over the investments, we have no control over what the package looks like, we can't change anything, but we just have to pay for it. I say we, the county, not even the school district. So all of those things I think are a little different because we get no control over them. We have to do them. So they're just saying,
Right.
here, you have to do this, you have no control, go do it. So I see that as a little bit of different scenario, not apples and apples, so I think that somewhat.
Good point.
I don't know if you have to make the argument in the letter like that, but I would suggest that we would put together something just saying these have been the impacts of these shifts, and Ted can give you the last few years. I guess it's only been the last couple. The pension shifts happened a while back, but they're continuing. Like, here's what we have already, and it's putting a damper on us being able to fund schools and fund the things that we need to fund, and they keep telling us we have to fund more things. Well,
Right.
all these shifts that we have no control over give us no choices.
Right.
And I think we should be looking at the impact and what it is for a small county. It's an impact for all counties, but we need to be articulating and keep reminding them that these shifts just keep being added onto. And we should have that as a talking point too, so I'm sure Ted has it.
Yes.
What it's been in the
I'm working
past-
with him on all of the estimates or figures that we can kind of pull together that are most important to articulate. But also, I think this is a good point, and I'll talk with him about this as well, because I do think the way you're articulating it exactly spot on what we want to say, and it's what other counties are also saying. It's the lack of control and the fact that there's just no wiggle room to do other things that we need or are being asked to do as well.
So I'm just saying, having the historical information and then what's in there now, I mean, some, as you said, are in individual bills, and some are in the BRFA bill. The BRFA bill is, I call it the big, fat, messy bill. It's the Budget and Financing Reconciliation Act. It has become a hodgepodge of just, it's always junk in there, like stuff
Right.
that's shifting, and it's never been good. I mean, you hardly, when Hogan was there, because he put it's a governor's bill, but it's a lot of stuff. It might be 50 different things in that bill that are poison pills. So just make sure we weigh in on this year what the impact's going to be, but this is the cumulative impact, and if we have some of that is really hurting, and I think we've done good, but it's taken away a lot of choices for the counties, our county as well, small county can't absorb it as well.
Yeah, that's well said, and I will definitely make sure to do that. And I do agree with how you're describing. I think it's important for people to understand that not only is the BRFA, presented with a lot of different things, but it's a vehicle because of the way the operating budget works, where things kind of can get slid in quickly and quietly, and you just have to kind of pay attention in case it impacts you. So.
I can agree. I can assure you that something in there, many things are going to impact us. So
Yes.
So if we do a broad letter, because we're not going to be able to address
Take
each thing
everything.
as it comes. So if you do it broad and include everything, at least we're explaining, hey, the more you shift, this is our situation.
Exactly. And that's what I think is important. I think it's exactly to your point, to make sure that we're just saying, essentially, everything you shift, it's going to come from somewhere else. Here's what we're seeing as a pattern, and what we'd hope to do if we could, but maybe can't,
Well, in
so
our county,
we'll
we're
work on
trying to
that.
stand up finish standing up our fire and EMS. We're trying to blueprint, and there's a lot of other things. But just even the
Correct.
Board of Elections with 2 weeks of early voting, that cost has exploded. It used to be very minimal, now it's millions of dollars. So all those things add up. So
Yes.
our citizens need to understand that too,
Right.
because that puts a pressure on our budget. So us having that talking point will be
Absolutely.
good to have at our fingertips at budget time.
So I will prioritize that in the week ahead so that we can work on that. It's coming up timing-wise anyway, but I'll try to prioritize it earlier on in the week so that we're not last minute on this one in case you want to weigh in. But if you have thoughts about any of the topics we ever discussed, just shoot me a text, an email, or call me so that I can have them, and I try to incorporate everything. One of the other things that's been brought up that I just want to raise while we're on the topic of funding is the 911 fund diversion language. I know that Valerie Hawkins has been on this and concerned, and she's shared a lot of information, but I do think from what we're hearing in the meetings with all the other counties in Mako that it's likely a non-starter because it's not legal to do what they're trying to do, at least from my understanding. So that's one shift that hopefully isn't going to happen.
Well, there was a lockbox put on the 911 fund, because I was on that committee, and they were supposed to be locked up. The 911 fee is on your phones. We decided, years ago, there was not enough money to help the counties do all of the conversion to the next generation 911, which means you can use your phone. It knows where you are. Your cell phone.
Yeah.
You're not connected to a copper wire. So when that changed, which was a big deal, it used to be you had to call from a place and be connected to a line so they knew you were sitting here.
Yeah.
Now they're connected through GPS, just like the Domino's guy uses. But it cost a lot of money for the counties and the state to upgrade. So we raised. They used to only do it on one line. You paid it on one line on a phone bill. So if you have 5 lines on your phone bill, you paid $1. So the number of dollars actually was going down because people were getting rid of their landlines.
Right.
And they put their kids and their mother and all on their bill, so they paid it once. So we made it that everybody had to pay it once, which raised those fees. We also allowed the counties to be able to raise their fee, which our county did, to pay only for 911, because that's how it was set up. That was for that emergency reason, so everyone had access on their phone. So we also put a lockbox on it, because if you raise fees, it should go to the thing you're raising it for. So they can always change the rule, because it's a law, and that's it's in the Constitution, they can change it. But the intention was that all those funds, and it shouldn't be loosely connected to what's it called now, MDEM, the old MEMA, Maryland Emergency Management. They're going to try to say that's going to help fund that. Well, you're backfilling something that they won't have to pay for now. We got to make sure the 911 fees stay to replace the equipment, because we've been very lucky. The counties, they've been generous with replacing the things we need and filling the things we've asked for.
Right.
And we don't want that to stop, because that was the intention of it for all the counties.
Absolutely.
So
And that's definitely the concern, and I have some specific examples from Valerie if we need them. So we're monitoring that issue too. I'm just looking through my notes because there's so many bills, and I want to see if there's anything else that I should mention specifically today. I think in general, what I'm going to aim to do is, whether I give you a longer presentation next week or a report, I'm going to try to just brief you on the status of everything that's coming up. So you might get a really long report, look at it or don't at your pleasure, but so you can see all the things we're tracking and where they are. If anything comes to mind that jumps out at you, that you have questions about, let me know, because there's a few hundred bills that either I'm tracking or I'm tracking on behalf of one of our departments. And I've brought the ones that I think are most interesting or important to all of your attention one way or another. But I think it's a good time, now that we have a few more weeks before crossover, to make sure that you get a comprehensive look at all of those. So depending on how intense Annapolis is, will depend on the format that you get this presentation, but I'll make sure one way or another you have that information, so that we can make sure that anything that we can impact, we do this session.
I have 2 more I want to ask you to monitor. Is anything going on with 988? And it just brought it to mind, because 988 is the non-emergency call number that's nationwide now, that they're making everybody stand up. And instead of calling 911 for an emergency for police officers, you call 988 for mental health or rape crisis or many of those other things. And it was paid for through grants while they were putting it together. I just want to make sure that doesn't get shifted to us we want to continue it, but we want to not have it be a mandate. And if they plan on that, we should use the 911 fees for 988 too. I mean, that at least you would find the connection.
Yeah.
Because the 988 is supposed to relieve the 911 operators from things that are not emergencies. And so it sort of is helping 911. So I see the connection there. So just find out, because once those grant funds run out, they're going to be looking for somebody to pay for it. And that should be the first place it goes to. And then 311 was a big thing that some of the larger counties were pushing for years. And 311 is, I need my pothole fixed. I'll call this number because I don't know where to call. And in the big counties, I think it's great to make that choice. But they wanted to mandate it for all of the counties. I don't know that our citizens have trouble. We have a thing on our website that says, report a problem right here. They can call up, they get someone. I don't know that we have that problem, that we have to put a whole stand-up 311 together. But just find out, because there was a push for that, I know, last year.
I think there's a bill. I remember seeing that, but I can't remember the status. So I'll look into that one, and I'll see if I can find anything on 988, and I'll let you know.
And what I've said about the 311, I think it's great if they want to do it. But we should not have to do it. We should, if we can take care of it ourselves, we should.
Enabling,
if Somerset County,
not a
they're very
mandate.
small. Montgomery County, Baltimore City, they're great ideas. But don't force us. Why would you care how we do it? Let us set the example, and if we want to do it, we'll do it. But it's all on the county budget.
Okay.
So just check on that, see if it's moving.
I will do that. I will check both of those. So stay tuned. You're going to be getting a lot of emails from me. I'm going to probably send you something individual to each of you with what I haven't heard from you on. If you prefer to get on the phone and talk them through, let me know. If you just want to respond, that's fine. Thank you to those of you that are responding. I know that I've been sending a lot your way. There's just a lot moving, and we're weighing in on more, and it's being seen. And now the delegation is coming to me as, asking for your opinion on things, which I think is a really great step in the right direction and shows that they care, to your point about what the commissioners have to say what you think and how it impacts you. So,
And they do care, but they are on different committees. It might not come in front of them.
Right.
If we send it to them, I mean, there's 2,500 bills. There's no
Oh,
way.
absolutely.
But if they're not on, and because we're not a big county, we don't have a huge delegation, so there's not someone on every committee. So if it's something if it's on their committee, they're going to know it. They're going to see our testimony. But if it's some committee they're not on, at least it brings awareness to talk to someone else in our caucus or to talk about it on the floor. So it just helps them.
absolutely. And I'll also say that some of the connections that I've made at MACO conferences are turning around. You know, for example, Senator Love reached out to me to ask for a position on a bill. I circulated, it wasn't one that we took a position on, but I thought that it was nice that other people who are outside of Carroll County are interested in what Carroll thinks on different issues too. So all of this that we're doing here is making a difference. So we'll keep doing as much as we can. If there's anything else that comes to mind that is on your mind, let me know. I've tried to get back to you on everything you've asked about. If I've missed something, remind me. Don't, there's just, as you said, thousands of bills and thousands of issues. So I'm trying to watch as many hearings and update you on everything that I can, but it moves fast. So if I've unintentionally missed something, just remind me and I'll get back to you. I'm going to head to Annapolis after this and weigh in on the unpaid property tax bill on the House and let them know about the changes that were made in the Senate and check in with their delegation. But if there's anything else you need, you can reach me the rest of the day on the cell phone. Any other questions or concerns?
Gentlemen, anything from you?
Just appreciate all the hard work as always.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good luck.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Pam. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Have a good day.
You too. So up next, we will move into a public hearing for proposed amendments to Chapter 35, Personnel, Pensions, and Retirement. And so I will call to order that public hearing. I'm going to kick things over to Tim Burke, our attorney, for a brief introduction, and then we will hear a brief summary of proposed legislation from Christy Bixler and her staff, and then we will open the floor to comments from the public. So Tim, take it away.
Good morning, Commissioners. This morning, you're going to consider some amendments to our pension ordinance to address a Deferred Retirement Option Plan, or DROP. This public hearing was advertised in the Carroll County Times twice, once on the 12th of February and once on the 19th. The purpose of today is to hear from the public, to elicit their comments on these proposed amendments. Prior to that, as you mentioned, we have Director Christy Bixler is here, along with Division Manager Robin Hooper and our Retirement Coordinator. They are here to answer any questions, and if the board so desires, they can do a short refresher presentation to remind you why we're here.
Thank you very much, Tim. Christy?
All right, good morning. So we are here in follow-up to our January 8th presentation in regards to the Deferred Retirement Option Program for our Public Safety Pension Plan. Just to reiterate some of the items that we had in that proposal that we presented to you. Eligibility for the drop would be same as for any other retirement eligibility for the Public Safety Pension Plan. So 25 years of eligibility service, or if the employee has received 55 years of age and completed 15 years of eligibility service. The decision to enter the program would be irrevocable, and employees with 30 or more years of service would not be eligible to enter the drop. We're proposing a 36-month or 3-year drop participation period with a fixed interest rate of 3% calculated annually, as well as cost of living increases to the pension amount that is put into the drop program. We also proposed a limitation on enrollment in the drop. For calendar year 2026, we propose no more than 10 drop participants would be allowed to enter the program from the Sheriff's Department, combining the law enforcement and the corrections officers. And then each subsequent year, no more than 5 participants from the Sheriff's Department and no more than 5 participants from the Fire and EMS Department. We also put in provisions regarding if there was an individual who applied on the same date, we would look at their seniority within the department. Credit to the drop account, again, we indicated a 3% interest annually and cost of living increases. And with regards to voluntary separation, we were proposing a forfeit of all interest and earnings credited or accrued to the member's drop account should they leave voluntarily from employment. So that does not include if the individual passes while in service or if they are involuntarily terminated. And lastly, The review of the drop, we had indicated that there would be a review after 5 years. So as of June 30th, 2031, we would take a look at the drop. As we had mentioned during our presentation, it's difficult to assess, depending on the number of people who go into the drop and what their particular situation is, what the costs of the drop will be. So we're proposing a look at that after 5 years to see how that's affected the pension plan.
What happens if we decide we think it ought to be evaluated in 3 years? We can do that anytime we
Yes.
want, but you will do it at 5 no matter what.
We will do it at 5, yes, it's in the plan. Yep. Any specific questions on the provisions that were recommended?
Did you have a fiscal impact of the provisions?
Not entirely. We had done a review of this back at the end of 2024, I believe. The assumptions were a little bit different based on what was provided to our actuary at the time. And their response to us really was, it depends on what you decide and who goes in it, what the plan provisions are, and how it goes about. So it was very difficult for us to put a number on it at this time, which is why we wanted to reevaluate it in the 5 years.
So we had an actuary actually look at it?
We did.
So it seems like, I mean, once they set up the chart, once they set up the spreadsheet, they can just, change a variable, and then it would change the whole assumption. I mean, if you change those assumptions in there, you could change your cost. So how do we know, like, what is it, what ballpark is it? Like, what do we, because it's part of the budget, it would be nice to know what this is, and then if somebody wants to change another piece of it, what would that mean?
I have this study here somewhere. Let me just find it. At least I thought I did. I apologize. I don't think I have that with me. The actual numbers that were given. I'd have to go back and take a look at that.
No, I think it's important to have it. And then if we decide to, tweak it, if after we get other people speaking, if they want to change another thing, we should be able to plug it in and say, okay, if we do this, this is the new impact that it would have. Once you got the spreadsheet and the assumptions set up, if you change 3% to 4% or 3% to 2%, it should do the calculations for you in the spreadsheet.
Yeah,
Once
I
you
can
put
see if I can find that on my phone while we're doing the
Okay.
public.
Any other questions, comments from the board? Well, we'll move into the actual public hearing portion of the public hearing. Deb, do we have, well, if anybody would like to speak on this, there are salmon-colored cards in the back that you have to fill out, and we certainly want to hear from you.
You want me to fill out a salmon-colored card?
Pink,
I mean,
we do
honestly,
pink.
After you speak.
So the whole thing doesn't affect me, but it affects the people behind me, except for Colonel Baker. So, I mean, I think it would be appropriate if we were able to sit at the table and go through and explain what our variations are and what we're looking for specifically. So if the board would allow that, I think we would.
Certainly, I think we can
I would
allow that.
approve
Yeah.
that, yes.
The only one, Mike Karolinko from the IAFF and Ash Owens will be with me from the FOP. So if we could.
All right.
Sorry, Christy.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, ladies.
I didn't know you meant right now, Sid.
This is
Morning,
something,
gentlemen.
thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. It means an awful lot to be able to go through the nuances of the DROP program. And Ash, Mike, they represent probably every firefighter, EMS, and police officer, correctional deputy in the county, including my deputies. Ash represents more than just my office. He represents all the local police officers as well. This is the third part to two parts that you guys approved back, I think 2 years ago. In fact, I think Commissioner Kyler was the one that started the vote for this to put the money into the pension system a couple years ago. And then there was an actuarial study that was done so that we could then start working through the pieces of it, 3 pieces of it, the multiplier, the disability, and now the drop. We've gotten 2 of the 3 pieces done. And so the fact that we're here today to work through these issues and vote on this and get it up and running is remarkable, because I've been the sheriff for 11 and a half years, and we've been working on this. I want to remind the commissioners that the sheriff's office, fire, EMS, are the only organizations in this county that do not have a drop program. Every law enforcement officer that works in this county does, from Manchester to Hampstead, Tawnytown, Sykesville, Westminster, Mount Airy, MSP. The only organization that doesn't have it is my office right now. And the not discrepancies, but the enhancements that I'm going to talk to you about over what the recommendations are by HR are more in line with what the local police officers get in this county. So I think Christine and her staff did a wonderful job getting this to this point. There are some things I don't agree with, Ash and Mike don't agree with, and that we want to discuss with you guys so that we're more in line with the industry standard, specifically in this county. Fire EMS obviously is new, but every county that surrounds them has a drop program. This would bring them in line with the counties that surround them. And it obviously makes both our organizations, a place that people want to come. It's easier to recruit and retain if we have these systems put in place. And so we're at that point. So we talked about the eligibility requirement that Ms. Bixler put in. So we are simply asking that an eligible member be able to enter the drop at any point in their eligibility. So 15 years at 55, or they get 25 years of service. So there is a cap on the multiplier. A deputy can only leave at so many percentage points or so much percentage. Fire EMS can only leave at so much percentage. If a deputy or fire EMS chooses to stay in the system, they're all but just giving 9% to the cause. It's smarter, actually, if they plan better and go into the drop. But if they choose not to, they still pay into the system. They're just not dropping. So we don't see where it would hurt the system if they choose to go in at any point after their eligibility period. I again, retired from the state police. There are troopers that I know that are still in the job. In the state police, you have to retire at the age of 60. You don't have a choice. It's one of the few systems out there like it. There are troopers that I worked with for many years that haven't dropped, will continue to work until they're 60. They can't get any more percentage. They stop getting their percentage points at 27 years and will stay on for likely 40 years, but never obtain more percentage. They can go at 71%, but they'll continue to put 8.5% into that system. Why would someone do that? Because they like their job and they don't want to go anywhere. And in this particular case, if you drop after 5 years, you have to leave. And that's unsettling for some people. They would rather work until a finite age and then retire. So we don't see where it is an issue that someone would enter the system at any point that they're eligible. I don't believe it would burden the system. I don't know if the two of you have anything to add on that, Asher.
Sure. I'd just like to add a little bit. For example, we were able to hire people who at 18 years old, 18, 19, 20 at the detention center to begin their careers. And somebody may do an entire 30-year career in the detention center as a correctional deputy. They could switch over and work the law enforcement side at some point after they turn 21. But ultimately, they were hired by our agency very young. And if that person, and we do have this occur, if that person works a 30-year career, they get to their 25, they decide, I'm not retiring at 25, I'm only in my 40s. So they work a 30-year career. They're still late 40s, early 50s. With the cap at 30 years not being able to get into the drop program, that option's not there for that person. Even though they're late 40s, early 50s, they could envision working another possible, 5, 10 more years and still be young, still do the job, and they're not able to have the benefit of taking advantage of the drop and being employed for another 5 years in the drop. And at that point, you're taking, it ends up taking away from that person the ability to get into it, even though, like the sheriff said, they're still paying into that program. So that's why we believe, part of the reason why we believe that there shouldn't be that 30-year cap, because we potentially do have that where people can stay around longer because they're younger, they're more viable in the position at that age, even though they've already done a 30-year career. And just because there's that cap at 30 years, then that has kind of passed them by. So we would like to see that not be an issue for somebody who is in that situation.
We hire people at such a young age, and I think Fire EMS can also hire them at the age of 18, that we're almost, if they drop, we're almost kicking them out the door after we've trained them and gotten them to leadership roles and saying, go somewhere else and work after we've put so much money into them that, that they probably would want to stay, but taking advantage of the drop would be something that they did, and then they're out the door. We just feel like at such a young age, they could get in and take advantage of it and be with us till they're 60, but never be able to take advantage of the drop.
So gentlemen, that's the issue of eligibility, but to segue into the drop period though, currently that's for 5 years, that's a 5-year period.
So the recommendation of HR is for 3 years. The law enforcement officers pension system for the officers in this county, the officers in this county, the local police departments that are under LEOPS, it's 5 years for them. MSP, it's 7 years.
Okay.
The recommendation by HR is 3 years. We just don't see that as viable. We believe a 5-year drop is more appropriate. It's in line with what the municipalities are getting.
Okay. I wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, I have a number of things as I walk through.
Okay.
That was the second thing, is the participation period. We're asking for the 5-year drop with no penalty for early withdrawal. There is no penalty in the LEOPS program. Essentially, just to kind of break it down for you, let's say you drop on January 1st and you decide to leave July 1st. If there was a finite amount that you were dropping at, $100 a day, for example, that you would get in a check if that was broken down for a year, that they would just calculate the days that you would be eligible for that money and then multiply it by whatever percentage that we agree on. That's what LEOPS does. There is no penalty for it. I just don't think that's in line with the drop programs that are out there. The state police doesn't do it either. After 7 years, you can leave. I did. I left 1.5 years after being in drop and wasn't penalized. That's how it was calculated for me. A lot of folks do that. I understand trying to get people to put some skin in the game, but it's my responsibility and Mike's responsibility to recruit, hire, and retain and train these folks according to the vacancies that we see on the horizon or that are happening. We're both very capable of managing vacancies and getting those ranks full. So I don't think a 5-year drop is out of the question, and I just don't think that a penalty is appropriate. And I do believe, we agree, that it's irrevocable. Once you go in, you can't come back out. You have essentially retired if you go into the drop. You have retired if you go into the drop. So it's irrevocable. You can't get back out and go back into the retirement system. You can leave anytime before the 5 years, but at the 5th year, you got to go. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here anymore. So that's kind of the theory. So we agree on that, but the 5-year drop with no penalty, I think, is more appropriate for what's in line with the industry standard here, especially in this county.
And so, Sheriff, as far as the lack of a penalty is concerned, I mean, what would be some of the reasons somebody might leave the drop program earlier?
Because they win a sheriff's election. Yeah, that's essentially what happened. I knew I was going to run for sheriff. I dropped the earliest I could drop. Had I lost, I'd had 3 more years in the drop, and I'd had to find another job. So there are opportunities that present themselves along the way that you don't want to deny someone that opportunity. So, and it could be a number of things. A spouse got a job in a different location.
Right,
They pick up and move south or wherever, and you're stuck, and you lose all your interests. You lose, a number of things because you got out of it early. So I just don't think that it's a good thing to do to penalize them. And if someone is in the drop, I know they're there, and we're tracking when and how. And most people don't leave the drop early. It was very unique for me to do that. I would have stayed for the 5 years because it was better money for me to stay for the 5 years. And I would have had I not won the election. But but it just worked out that way. So there are
Unforeseen
reasons.
life circumstances.
Yeah, there are some unforeseen circumstances or opportunities that present themselves, not just for the deputy or the fire EMS, but for a spouse or a loved one in a family. So,
Thank you.
I'd say this on that point. I think that people who would go into the drop, they're well-intentioned, so their idea is, yes, I'm going to stay for these 5 years. But life circumstances, like the sheriff said, happen. And as much as somebody might want to stay, they're in a position where they have to choose between ending their career early and not fulfilling what they said that they would do, their obligation to stay with the agency for a full 5 years, versus maybe the health of a loved one, maybe their wife is tired of the cold weather up here in Maryland and they want to go to Florida sooner, and you don't want to be left behind when that happens. So those kind of things, life circumstances change, and people would have to make a tough decision. And people are going to do what they have to do, what's best for them and their families. I don't think that it's necessarily the right thing for the county to do to have a penalty in that, and take somebody's couple $1,000s worth of accrued interest over the course of time that they've been in there, and not allow them to keep that after they've done a 25+ year career in public service for the county. Look, this isn't an easy job. It's a sacrifice that we all make when we start this career, but it's incredibly fulfilling, and it's something that we all love. But it is taxing. It does take a toll on you after 25+ years, and that's the service that we give to the county.
I think we have to look at the fact that circumstances do change, and certainly it's employment, it's family issues, it's all those things. When somebody's coming in, just like Ash said, is they're well intentioned. I think they intend to do that whole time. But one of the things that we look at is quality of life when we retire. So as we're reaching those later years, we may be in one spot physically, capability-wise, injury-wise, all of that at that date when we're coming to that point. We feel confident that we're able to do that time. But there's certainly I guess this nagging scenario in the back of my head where somebody comes in and climbing in and out of the engine all the time, and going into fire, doing all these things, dragging the hose, doing all those different facets and aspects. There might be something that changes in that scenario where that becomes an impracticability, where it's just they're not able to do that anymore. They're pushing it. If we, I guess, unnecessarily restrict these things, we lose that functional benefit of this program for the quality of life for that employee, by maybe putting them in a circumstance where they're pushing it, where they're saying, I have to meet that point because I don't want to have this penalty. And then we end up in a scenario where quality of life is unnecessarily impacted at the end of that because they push themselves past the point. Maybe safety issues or whatever else, but certainly for them, is like, as an individual, we're concerned about that. So, just to do something unnecessarily would, their skin's already in the game. They put themselves on the line for 25 to how many years we're talking about here. So giving them that option without being restrictive is important.
Thank you for that.
And on this topic of the early withdrawal, and I apologize if you might have mentioned this, Sheriff, and I didn't catch it, but certainly it would seem practical then if we were to make these changes to establish some sort of guardrails in terms of, a full 12 months or a full, if we're going to try to calculate it down to the day, it might be difficult in that scenario. So, are we talking about if you withdraw early, let's say if we made these changes, you withdraw early from drop, you're eligible for whatever full 12 months periods you participated in the program and things of that nature. Are we going to try? It just seems like it would be difficult.
I'll tell you, I won the election on November 2nd, walked into State Police HR November 3rd, and they handed me a paper and said, here's what you're eligible for, and that's it. They were able to calculate it within a matter of minutes. I don't think it's difficult to do that at all. And I said, I'm leaving November 30th. And they said, here it is. And that was, and let me tell you, state is a dysfunctional system, but they could figure that out rather quickly. So I don't think it is something that's difficult to figure out at all.
But in your original talk, you said it would only be a year's interest.
So you traditionally that's what it is. It's a up to the point that you leave.
Yeah, if you're 2.5, you get 2.
Right, if you stay a full year, obviously it's better to get the interest for the full year. But if you only stay a portion of the year, you would still get the interest. And one of the caveats there, and we'll talk about the particular interest, is that I could have an employee that's 54 years old and has 14 years on the job, not eligible for retirement. If they choose to leave, they get their contributions back, and you guys are going to give them a check for their contributions and 5% interest. So, they're not being penalized for rolling out early. They're still getting their interest, and you're able to calculate the contributions. The staff here is as sharp as any as I've worked with. I think it's pretty easy for them to calculate the contributions, the drop, the contribution, and the percentage. I don't think that's an issue.
And yeah, I could do the calculation. It's an easy calculation, but I worry, and you said it earlier, if we do all your requests, they have zero skin in the game. They can drop out anytime they want. They get penalized, which I understand.
Yeah,
from your
absolutely.
side.
And I got no problem with that. I was under that system, and so is every other police officer in this county is under that particular system. Every one of them
I've
is.
talked to toll police. I've talked to Baltimore City. I've talked to Baltimore County.
If you call them toll police, I'm pretty sure you're going to get punched. But Transportation Authority, yeah.
Yeah. No, I've talked to anybody I know that either had a drop or used it, and some of them regret it, and some of them don't.
Some of them do, because it's irrevocable in most cases,
Yes,
and that's where the regret is. So if we assume that all these people are going to jump into the drop, you're wrong.
Yeah.
That's not the case. It's a piece of the retirements that's there if you want to take advantage of it. But like I said, it's a death warrant for these guys, and it's hard after 25, 30 years of doing this to say, that's it, I'm done, and knowing in 5 years. It's about planning, it's about working on your system and knowing when it's appropriate to jump into that. But I don't think penalizing them is a smart thing to do at all. It will keep them from using the system.
No, I understand, and I think if we decide to consider any of this, we almost got to leave the public comment open and ask HR for, and it's not impossible, but it's a guess on what it's going to cost us, and it's a guess on what the changes will cost us, but
I got to stop you there, because the actuarial study was not done based on the recommendations of Christie and her group. That's not what the actuarial studies were done on. So the actuarial studies are always that worst case scenario, that an entire organization decides that has the ability to do it, they're going to get into a drop. Or we're all sitting here and an airplane lands on this place and 20 of my cops die, a 9/11 incident. That's what actuarials are generally looking at, the worst case scenario. So I believe that the money that was funded, the actuarial was looking at the worst case scenario. I believe that these recommendations that were done by HR are very, very modest. And what I'm saying is industry standard, and that this system could easily consume and be able to withstand and still be extraordinarily viable and lucrative when it comes to out years with funding. So,
and your requests, do you have priorities on which request, or you very much want them all?
I think if you ask me, hey Sheriff, what are you looking for? I would say that minimally we would look for what every other police officer in this county gets, which is under law enforcement officers' pension system, which is a 5-year drop, no penalty. You can get in it whenever you want. I think their particular system's 4%. Troopers get 6%. I think 5% is a worthy percentage when it comes to calculating it at the end of the year. So I think minimally what the law enforcement officers' pension system, what a Mount Airy, a Manchester, a Hampstead police officer is able to get is what the deputies and fire and EMS should get. I don't think our recommendations are out of line for the most part with those asks. So I think we're pretty close on it.
Going back to what you had mentioned about the cost, I just like to remind everybody that 2 years ago, we remember there was $2 million that you all voted on to put into the system, and the system hadn't been fully created yet because the logistics of all of that had to be worked out, which were worked out last budget cycle. And then we're still, working through this because this is a different thing and can be a little complicated. But when the actuarial study was done, for all three components of the things that needed to be enhanced for public safety, and that was the pension enhancement, the 66 2/3 disability, and the drop program. It was a three-pronged thing. Each part of the actuarial study had its own thing, but it was all together. And the cost that they had estimated was for all three things in a retirement program. And we agreed, we being the members of the Carroll County Sheriff's Office and Law Enforcement and Detention Center, and the members of Fire and EMS, agreed that we would help contribute to the cost of that by increasing the percentage that we paid into it by 1%. So we went from 8% to 9%. So every paycheck that everybody gets every 2 weeks, a portion of that is going into this program, of which there's 2 parts that have been created and are fully functioning now as of July 1st. But we have this third prong that is still being worked on. So that money is going into that pot to partially pay for this isn't worked out yet. And I get it, like this was a different thing. It wasn't just an ordinance that had to be written real quick to get that going. So here we are in, fast forward from July 1st to now February 26th, and we're trying to still get the program going. But the money is going into the pot, so to speak, to help pay for that.
The only thing I truly believe in actuarial could get you a finite number on is the multiplier and how many years an individual has and what it looks like as they retire. Disability, we're hoping it's never used. Right now, I've only got one individual that's under the law enforcement pension system that's on a disability, and beyond that, we're hoping obviously never, but actuarials look at the worst case scenario and then drop. It would be difficult. I don't have problems. You look at it every year and get a briefing from Christy on how many people went into drop. What are we looking like there? Because I think you'd be surprised at the neutral cost of it and how many people may not use it immediately.
Well, one of the things that it keeps coming up is the potential cost and the implications of this program. I think for the sheriff's office and certainly for fire and EMS in such a short amount of time, we've benefited from looking at all these other jurisdictions, best practices, what are the outcomes, what challenges have they had, and it's propelled. I mean, look at fire and EMS. The things that we're doing now as a department are they're getting national attention. And I think that's a very real thing that we have to take into account. Just like that, the first step in this whole conversation that I did was reach out to all the other counties and, a broad, everything from Washington County. I even spoke to Montgomery County this morning, even just to review a few things. But all of these jurisdictions that have these programs, one of those lines that I asked them specifically was, where are your costs? And it came back. Speaking just specifically to Montgomery County this morning, they have a 7.25% interest rate return to their employees on their drop. Their specific line, their quote was, administrative costs and costs of this program to the county are de minimis. That's what we hear consistently across the board on these, wherever they are. And I think one of the things we have to realize is the counties, also Montgomery County was saying, is that there's the anticipation that over the long run, they actually make money off the interest rate. At 7.25%, they're typically seeing about an 8% return. So they're seeing a 0.75% return over the years. That's of course average. There's going to be years where it's going to be crap. There's going to be years where it's going to be better. But that 8% average, it offsets anything that we could say is administrative costs, but it's also at the same time, over the course of the life of this thing, we're not looking at a massive liability. We've talked pretty significantly about it, and I know I've talked to a number of you about it, is that I think through the advocacy of this whole thing or any of the conversations we have, it would be self-defeating to come to this board and advocate for anything that wasn't sustainable or realistic. This is certainly one of those things. We're looking at a program that brings a lot of benefit to the conversation. We certainly want it to be comparable and have that parity with other jurisdictions so we keep a competitive edge. But we would not want to come to you with something that is self-defeating and hurts us in the long run and hurts our people. Certainly makes you look bad or anything of the sort. This only leverages us to be better in the long run.
I have a couple of questions. And I'm new to this, so I apologize. So first, Cash, you mentioned there were 3 things that you guys negotiated, and two we've done, and one, the disability was one, what was the other? The drop is the one?
Multiplier for the amount of years that you serve, the actual multiplier. So it went from 2% a year to 2.5% a year.
2.5%, and that increased here, and then the drop is the other thing.
There was three.
The third leg, so the other two have happened, and then the contributions went up from 8 to 9%.
Correct. That started July 1st of this year. I'm sorry, 25.
So that's not a fourth leg? Okay, that was
It is
just,
I mean, it was, I guess, an olive branch to make sure that the three pieces were funded, and that's the skin in the game. That these guys decided to go from 8% contribution to a 9% contribution. And in theory, these guys are going to pay it forever because they're new. They're just starting. I'm the one that's been around for a long period of time, and I'm the only one that has some people that can go into the drop right now. It'll be a long time before they're able to go into the drop program.
it seems to me like there's not an argument about having it, it's an argument about what the parameters should be as we're wading into this. So question, you talked about Maryland State Police. When did they begin drop? Do you remember what year?
I'm going to take a
Just a
stab
guess.
at it, but it was in the 90s, in the mid 90s.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then when did everyone else, like you said, two of our groups
Anybody-
already have it?
All of our police officers in this county, every local municipality has it under LEOPS. And if you were whenever you went into LEOPS, it would have been the early 90s also, or mid 90s that LEOPS started the drop. So just the state police pension system is a kind of a subsystem under the law enforcement officers pension system for the state of Maryland. It's all one big umbrella. Multipliers and what the troopers get is a little different than what local police officers and maybe other pension system under LEOPS get. But and you may not have remembered this, but you were in legislature and you voted to give troopers 7 years in drop as opposed to 5 years in drop. And that was done 2 years ago. And there was a reason it was done like that, because they needed to retain people. They're losing people like it's going out of style. And so the only way to retain them was to extend a drop from a 5-year to a 7-year period.
Well, that's my point. So back when drop started, and you just mentioned 7 to 9. I don't remember that, so it might have been after me. But early on in the early 2000s, we enhanced drop for the same reason. We were losing officers in Maryland State Police. Now, Maryland State, and I never quite understood this then, Maryland State Police have the second best pension to our judges, which is good. I'm glad. But they pay a lot in as well. And so they pay in more than the average state
So
employee.
they've changed that system multiple times over since I started in '89, but it was changed
But they
from
did
a
it-
25 to a 20-year, now 25 and a drop, and the multiplier and the percentages. It's all changing. It's a fine system. There's no arguing that.
No, but my point, let me just finish. My point is, they pay more and they get more because they put more
They
skin in the
don't
game.
pay anymore. We pay more in this county than the troopers pay. I paid 8.5% as a trooper. They still pay 8.5%. These guys are paying 9%, so they pay.
Okay, well, but the state employees pay 7. Teachers and state employees
Right,
went
but-
from
and
5.
I'm in a civilian system too, just like all you guys are in, everybody behind me except for anybody that's fire EMS or a deputy.
And that's what I'm
So
trying to figure out. So-
Multiplier's different for me as a civilian than it is for deputies in the public safety pension system.
Okay.
And the troopers are the same way. They're in a different, their multiplier is different for, and their benefits under the pension system are different. Same as it is here, rightfully so. A trooper was almost killed on Liberty Road the other day. A Baltimore County firefighter, my nephew, was almost killed 2 weeks ago at a house fire. These guys are putting it all on the line yesterday when we're up on a barricade. I mean, so they rightfully so get a different benefit than an average employee, and they should. And anybody that wants to argue with me about that needs to hang out with me for a week.
I'm making a different point. My point is you guys pay, well, I think it was 9%. It was back when the state was 5, the Maryland State Police was paying like 9. They were paying a lot more because they had a more enriched benefit, but they were paying more in to begin with. So it used to be a 4% spread. Now you're saying it's 2.5% spread. But back when drop was begun, they said we want to pay more, and I think it was 9. And again, state employees back then, teachers, all were paying 5. We redid the program. We moved everybody up to the vesting went from 5 years to 10 years, and we went from 5 contribution to 7 on state employees. So the spread became tighter. But you all were always paying more to begin with.
Without a doubt.
Okay, so I'm trying to make.
And I'm not sure Christie would be able to, I believe I was paying 8% I'm paying 8% as a civilian. I don't know what I'm
No,
paying.
but my question is, and this is why I don't understand, so when somebody decides to get out of the pension, why would you get out of a pension? Like, one thing that has been brought up here, how much is the county, what percentage does the county have to get put in? Because you're if you're not putting it in anymore in your pension, then we're not matching that pension. So how much of that comes against the drop? So if we're not matching whatever the percentage is, and in the state police, it used to be a large percentage that the state put in. What percentage does the county match to get their retirement? They put 9 in, what's the county part?
No, they're putting probably double that in. But those costs change annually, what the county's costs are, but I would argue that it's probably close to double.
Well, then my question is
What the county pays, and then the deputy pays that 9%.
but if everybody stops, they want to drop. I'm trying to figure out, first of all, why an employee, how you guys do a calculation, say you want to do it. Maryland State Police, the reason they wanted to do it is because they had a limit. They had to retire after 25 years. You guys don't have that. But, okay, so I'm
No,
trying.
they have to retire at the age of 60. They can put 45 years in, as long as they're at the age of 60. Nobody wears a uniform in the state police except the superintendent that is over 60.
But for you guys, is there an age?
There is no age limit for us.
Okay. And so, if I'm deciding I'm going to drop, why would I decide at a point in time? Because I could keep adding on to my retirement. How does it end up benefiting the employee, and why do they make that decision if there's no?
You can't keep adding on to your retirement. There is a
Can't.
finite percentage that you're allowed to get
Okay.
as a deputy and as a trooper, and you can stay on for 40 years and never drop, but you're just giving to the cause 8.5% or 9% a year, 9% here. If you go into the drop and use it to your benefit, in the state police, you got to do it before, if it's 7 years, I presume you got to jump in
You
at
can only
53 years
contribute up
old.
to a certain amount.
You can contribute all you want, but you can only take out so much. 71% is the
Okay,
max
that's what I didn't
that
know.
you can get as a trooper. So once you hit 27 years, you're at 71% with the state police. If you choose to stay on for 40 years, you're still at 71%.
But you're
you're
stepping-
giving you're still giving that contribution to the state of Maryland.
But
You're
would-
not getting anything from it.
So would you be getting 71%? Do you still get to have increases?
You can still get COLAs, you can still, and the 71% is the highest 3 years of your, so if a girl chooses to stay on until they're 60, it's the highest 3 years prior to that they would leave at 71%.
That's
They
after
would
how
never
many
drop.
years? How many years is the 71%?
Generally, it's 27 years is
Okay.
what it would take to
And that's-
get to the 71%.
I'm just trying to figure out why a person would decide to drop and not stay in and keep getting more years in unless it, like you
Because
said.
they're done. They
Okay.
can't get any more percentage, so they would continue.
Okay, so
to-
that's when they decide. Okay, so after they've maxed out and they're not going to get any more. So they decide they want to drop and go.
Could.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
that
they
would be-
could.
And Sheriff, just to be point, like, fire department wise, is there are a number of departments, actually, a good number of departments that don't have restriction on the upper limits of when you can enter into that. It becomes but also do not have a limit on the upper end of what their actual percentage is on their retirement, their pension multiplier. So, Baltimore City, they the very complex drop system and everything else, multi-tiered, and then they can actually come out and a whole bunch of other stuff. But with that said, they can continue on their multiplier. We cap out at 75%.
They
at
can leave
30
it
years.
100%.
Yeah, they can leave it. I think it's
And still drop.
102%. It's
Yeah.
crazy. We have a captain, the longest running officer down there, who's about to retire, and he's above 100%. It's an insane scenario for him. Good for him.
Because
But with that said,
they can't get enough employees down.
yeah, but with that said, I think there's also what this does is functionally it's a little different than that pension check, obviously, because we get that lump sum. So I think in planning, retirement planning, when these guys are looking at this, there is a point where they can get to that point where there's the 62.5% at 25 years, where they get to the 75% and they're done, and they say, hey, like, this is the point where now I feel like I want to move into this other investment, category, and they start looking at how that would benefit their scenario specifically. And the sheriff said earlier is not everyone is going to choose to do the drop. There are a lot of people that retire, never went into the drop, that have their own reasons for that. Maybe they wanted additional multiplier or whatever else, or maybe they said they're just done. But for the guys that do go into the drop, that this is a benefit for, and certainly a comparable benefit as we're looking, it's their decision.
I'm trying to figure out, is there any save, if someone drops early before they're capped out? That means that they're not putting in their percentage, and where the employer not putting in their percentage.
Well, because at that point, they functionally retire.
Okay, so
You
most
know,
people
you're
wait
getting the benefit of, giving them a paycheck without having
But
to
if
worry
they stayed,
about that.
if they
but-
decided to stay, and they're younger, and they don't, would, if they stayed, would we still be putting in, I'm trying to figure out if there's a savings side if people go early. For us, is there anything that we could, let's say that the number of dollars is X, but somebody drops early and we're not putting in because they still have 5 years left.
And does county continue its contribution into the system when somebody goes in and drops? We don't, but does the county continue its contribution?
Depends
That's
on
the.
the multiplier maximum. So as the sheriff
The
was
years.
saying, yes, the number of years.
I'm just trying to see if that's a point when someone decides.
If they would go before they would get to the maximum multiplier, then yes, there would be a savings to the county because we would figure their retirement as of the date they're leaving
Okay.
and base that on whatever however the multiplier works out at that time.
Okay. Okay, so sometimes there could be a savings to the county that would offset some of that, depending on what, again, it depends on what timing everybody takes.
I'm confused. I'm leaving.
I'll explain it to you later. Okay, so I get it. So, question on the EMS. On the EMS, a lot of folks were getting in are already trained and they've come from somewhere else. Now, they could have maybe stayed where they were, or they maxed out and they decided not to drop and come here, and then do they have to start over again? How does that work with somebody that's coming in EMS that's come 20 years, 25 years from somewhere else?
So from what I understand is if they're not collecting a pension and they bring pension funds from another governmental pension, they can buy up to 5 years, I believe it is. But for most of our employees, which was absolutely a concern for our employees and access to this program, and it's going to continue to be a concern for some of our older employees that have already worked in this jurisdiction for 20 years. These are conversations that we had for years in the past, moving up to this point. But the minimum requirement for retirement is that 15-year and 55 years old, the requirement there. We're having a hard time, obviously, negotiating any kind of earlier access for those guys because the years of service credit doesn't change, all of that kind of stuff. I think there are some older guys that work for us that's worked in the county for decades that would love to have a little bit better retirement scenario coming from the county, but that's been a kind of a non-starter to a certain degree over the last couple
I
of years.
just didn't know how it affected that group of employees, because it seemed like it was
So,
significant.
yeah, I think and then the conversation at that point does switch over to an eligible employee kind of, conversation, because I think with that decision, there's a block of our employees that are ineligible for drop just because they're going to go sooner. We do have some employees that are 60 years old already that are, late into their careers because they were already employed here serving the county. They moved into fire and EMS, and thank God for them.
So they'd have to wait the 15 years. If they came from somewhere else and they're 25 years, they'd have to wait 15
You have to get to that
years of the drop.
15-year eligibility moment to get into the drop. So it's a tough conversation with those guys, but.
No, I was just trying to figure out if you have a choice, why you would not stay in. I get that, depends on your age, depends on how many years you got in, and that you were maxed out, and then you would go into the drop. I do agree with you on I think on the limit. I don't know if the limit gets, why limit someone or not let them pull out if they want to? Because why would you want to keep someone? Because then they might end up on disability because they really shouldn't be there. So I'm not sure. I think that part I agree with. The other question on the percentage. The issue is about at the end of the year, like when it gets credited, is that what it is?
Generally, it's compounded annually. The state police for a long time, it was compounded daily, actually monthly. It was compounded monthly. So they realized that was not feasible, so they went back to compounding it annually. So,
right?
and really, if you stay on for 364 days and you get a 4% or a 5% or a 6%, then what's the difference? I don't quite understand why you're just compounding it so that they get their percentage when they leave.
Well, you're giving them more credit. Each percentage is more credit.
Every day they stay, they get more credit.
I thought you
right.
said if it's compounded annually, it's not. It's compounded at the end
If
of the
somebody
year.
just chooses to leave early, as opposed to saying that you don't get any of your interest, that we would compound the drop up to that particular point that they choose to leave. So I try and put this into, so you leave January 1st, and let's say your retirement salary is $60,000. You stay on till January 1st, and you get that $60,000 in drop money, and they multiply that by 5%. So now you're $63,000. So then you go for another half a year, and you decide that you're going to leave. And so whatever 63,000 divided by 365 is, I don't know, 125 hours a day, whatever that is multiplied by the percentage, and then that's what you.
At that point, so
you leave
it's
at it. That's
compounded
what you leave
annually,
at.
and if you leave early, it's prorated.
It's prorated for the, however many days you were in the drop for that particular year.
Is that correct? I just want to, it's a difference between daily and monthly, it's just
I
different.
pulled up the forms on the LEOPS website, and it indicates that drop accounts receive 4% interest compounded annually, but it's calculated based on the beginning balance, so they get 2% as of the beginning balance of the fiscal year,
And
and then
2%
the
after
ending
that. Mhm.
balance of 2%. So it's not a full 4% for the entire year. It's 2% on the beginning balance and then 2% on the ending balance as of the end of the fiscal year or when they leave the drop program, so termination.
So they're getting 2% up front.
They're getting
and they're getting
2% on the
2%.
beginning, and
So they're
then
getting it
2%
early.
on the-
Okay.
on the next
And then,
amount.
and who is that for, the 4%?
That was LEOPS for the state program.
Lee Ops, okay. I'm just trying to piece all the pieces together to figure out what the impact is and who decides to do it and when.
Yeah, I think the impact is difficult. I think that again, the what it truly costs is obviously predicated on how many people are in it and what Christie can look at annually and say this is what the cost of it is. So I think that a sunset is important, or an evaluation of it is important.
So the issue of whether or not we take everybody or just 10 a year,
So that's another piece. So we believe that there shouldn't be a particular limit. LEOPS does not have a limit. We believe it should be 1% of the total amount of employees per month. 1% of the total amount of employees per month for fire EMS and for the sheriff's office. How did we come up with that and why? So it's easy to say, well, we'll go off of seniority, but I graduate classes I hire everybody on the same day and graduate everybody on the same day, and they may spend their careers together. Who gets to fight it out over who gets to drop? And if you can't drop that particular year because I graduated 10 people and only 5 people can go in it, then you've got another year that you've got to wait before you can go into the drop. Well, I may have graduated 10 more the next year or 5 more the next year. So I think it causes a big backlog of people if we don't look at how many people can go in a monthly basis as opposed to an annual basis. And we believe 1% is fair when it comes to fire EMS and my office.
1% a month. And
Well,
that- okay.
We actually got that from Frederick County. Their fire EMS drop, is younger than a lot of the other drops. And when I talked to their local over there, they gave that feedback. They're like, listen, we want 1%. And it was multifaceted, multifunctional in the sense that they knew their department was going to scale over time. So it allowed them to actually have, some kind of set proportionality across that growth, make sure that that's still an accessible program as intended originally. The other side of that too is, when you start looking at the calculation of across departments, if there is a restriction, because a lot of them are unrestricted on entries, for the restrictions that do exist in some of those jurisdictions, it's comparable. It ends up being comparable. It's no more, I guess, generous than what some of those restrictions are already set at. I think obviously the sheriff's office has had their fair share of growth. We are going to continue to address vulnerabilities and issues within fire and EMS, and setting that percentage makes sense.
And when the whole program was put in, it was put in for the purpose of making sure we had enough law enforcement and EMS, law enforcement for Maryland State Police, that they weren't all leaving and we could fill our spots and encourage people to stay that could. That was the main reason.
It's a retention tool,
And the second
yeah.
benefit was that it benefited the employee. So, I guess that's what we want to make sure of. Right now you're in a place, you would still have control.
It benefits the employee, but it's arguable that it benefits the system as well. So, the actuarials or the budget people may say no. I believe that it does. I believe it's cost neutral or it benefits the system.
And they still continue to get whatever their pay is, and they would still continue to get increases in their wages.
Correct, but those increases are not calculated into the multiplier for their retirement. If Ash retires today, his retirement is set. 5 years from now, this is what his salary is 5 years
Based
from
on when he
now,
stopped.
when he went into that drop. There are cost of livings that are all automatically put if a cost of living is applied annually, but his retirement salary is that salary. You're just taking his retirement salary and you're putting it in an annuity and you're guaranteeing a certain percentage on it. And then at the end of the time period, 5 years, or if he leaves early, you hand him a check. If you say he only gets 5% and the system makes 10, then the system makes 5% more off of Ash staying. So, and then it, again, helps me with, or whoever the sheriff is, with the ability to say, I know I'm losing Ash in 5 years. I know I'm losing these guys for the most part in 5 years. I can then recruit and put people in a police academy, in my own academy, corrections and law enforcement, we run both, and train my people up that way. So I think the amount of people that go into it, again, I'll tell you, it's my responsibility to make sure that I continue to fill my ranks, recruit and train people. My responsibility. I get what the county's saying, but at the end of the day, it's my job to make sure that I have the deputies to do this job.
And their job is to try to make sure that we know what we're doing, what we're getting into, and I think we're trying to get
And
to
the sky doesn't fall, and it's naive if you believe that we don't work together every day, day in and day out. I mean, we're working constantly on those things with hiring and retention, and HR for the county is a pivotal portion of what we do. So, but I believe at the end of the day, and it's my job to make sure that I have the people that are there to
One
do
last
it.
question.
They could just leave. He can turn around and say, I got 25 years on, I'm out. You're going to give me that money anyway, and you're going to give him that COLA anyway. I'm saying I can retain him as opposed to going through a police academy and hiring someone and training them and doing all those things. You passed that legislation back in, I want to say probably 2018 to give them, maybe 19, to give troopers a seven-year drop. And you did it because they're down about 300 troopers. And they're losing troopers like it's going out of style. So the only way to keep their ranks full, I will tell you this, there will be a reconciliation with that. At some point, it's going to meet the drop program and the lack of being able to put people in the police academy are going to crash into each other. It's inevitable. It's a Band-Aid for them by increasing it from 5 to 7 years. They know it. But they're trying to do something in the meantime to fill those ranks. We're in good shape. I mean, we're in good shape with our staffing, but this is just one of those tools that we got to keep working on. So,
I understand. So they get a retirement, it's fixed when they end. Then they get a COLA, and then they get the 3% on the money that's already been sitting there and accumulating.
5%, but yeah, that's
whatever.
fine. That's a Freudian slip, but yeah.
That's one of the components.
That was one of the recommendations is 3%, but yeah. So they don't get that check. So it's kind of ghost money. It's like a 401 or 457. It's sitting in an annuity. And the only time they would get that is if they severed employment before the drop program was over. If they severed it a year after being in a drop, or in that 5th year when they have to go, that's when that annuity money gets transferred over to them, and then they've got to do something with it. But in the meantime, it's kind of ghost. It just sits in the account. It gets the 5%. And the system gets its 10%. But had Ash left, they would give him his money and they wouldn't make money off of his money. So it's arguable whether it's a cost neutral or if it's a benefit.
And do we actually, I'll ask Christy about it, you can answer this later, but do we actually buy an annuity so it's fixed and we know it's there, or is it something that the market would control?
It's investment. No, we keep it in the same account that the rest of the fund is.
Okay, so it's not an annuity you're buying, it's fixed.
Not a
Okay.
separate account.
All right, thank you.
And if I could mention, like certainly one of the benefits of having a drop program is that, because as of right now, without a drop program, anybody can retire and put their paperwork in and says, I'm gone in 2 weeks. The agency can't prepare for that. With the drop, it gives the people the ability to take advantage of the program because it is beneficial to the employee, but it also gives the agency the ability to see it coming, so to speak. So they can know that this person is intending to retire in 5 years. And one of the things that concerns me the most about the entry limit that's proposed of the initial 10 the first year, 5 every subsequent year after that, is that, and to go into what the sheriff was talking about with 1% a month, if you have that initial 10, like, okay, this first year, we're likely not going to have a full 10 that would go into the program initially, and then it goes to 5 every year after that. Obviously, 5 is a smaller number, but if I'm hired in, let's say, November, because we don't just have one hiring date a year, people are hired all throughout the year. So if I'm hired in November, but I get to the point where I want to go into the drop because I'm eligible, I could be potentially, if it was a heavy hiring year, an academy class, maybe even a lateral class, and we're also battling, law enforcement is also, competing with corrections too. So it's not just the academy classes for law enforcement, it's corrections also. So if I get hired in November and that year starts in January, there's people who are hired in January who go into the program. Maybe a couple people in April that go into the program. And it's maxed out at 5. I'm looking at the tea leaves and I see, well, there's this many people that were hired in August. There's this many people that were hired in September. I'm not getting in the program this year, and I may not get in the program next year either. And people are just going to retire. Or they might wait. We believe that the 1% per month cap makes a lot more sense because you're battling with people monthly rather than yearly. So you may have to prolong getting into the program for a month or 2, maybe 3 months. But eventually within that year, you're going to be able to get into the program. And you're not going to have as many people in each given month that are going to be eligible, going to have the same hire dates that month and all that. So, for example, if the sheriff's office has 300 employees, that would be, so the cap would be no more than 1% of the amount of the agency per month. So that would put 3 employees can get into the drop program per month. And that would make it where, okay, if I'm that 4th employee that month, then I roll over in the next month and I've got first dibs on it the next month. And then you don't have this bottleneck as much year to year with that yearly cap. And it gives folks the ability to plan and to be able to reasonably know that they're going to be able to get into the program at some point over the course of those months. And the same thing for fire and EMS. It would be 1% of the amount of their department. Again, let's say 300 employees, it would be 3 per year. That gives you, between the distinction between fire and EMS and law enforcement and corrections, it gives you, on the law enforcement, corrections, sheriff's office side, that would be 36 people per year that could get in. We're not going to put 36 people in the drop program in a year, but the number allows that the program can be viable for a lot of different people throughout the year. I think the cap of the 5 just really limits the purpose of the program, and that is to maintain and retain these folks that are seasoned employees that you can get another 5 years of employment out of them. Not everybody is going to work, like you said, to get that multiplier for retirement up to the highest it could possibly be. A lot of people look at that when they get to 25 years, they say, that's not worth it to me. I can retire now. I like the idea of that. The drop program they may look at and say, that's worth it to me. We can't look at it and say that every employee is going to have that in their mind, that they're going to want to work until they can get that multiplier percentage all the way up. So it just gives them a couple of options, and either way, if it's somebody who is working toward getting that multiplier as high as it can be, or it's somebody who wants to enter the drop and we get another 5 years of employment out of them, we're getting more out of them. So they do have both options. And some people, like the sheriff said, are just going to decide, I'm good with what I'm at now at 25 years. I'm eligible to retire. It's time to move on, and that's okay too.
Well, just one of the concerns I heard was the bulk hiring of fire and EMS at all one point too, affecting this program. And I just want to say is, one is just what Ash said, is that not everybody, and as we said earlier, not everyone's going to access this program. But as we discussed earlier, I don't want to undervalue the fact that we do have older employees in fire and EMS, and we do have to always explore opportunities to give them benefit for the time that they're serving with us, because we have to recognize that their retirement scenario is much different, and we do need to address that over time. I understand that's very complex. There's a lot of layers to that. I think it needs to be an issue moving forward. Likewise, though, because we do have such a broad spectrum of employees that have come over to fire and EMS, because the way we've hired, we are not looking at 224 employees that are all going to be retiring in the same day in 25 years or whatever from that 2023 date. You know, we're going to have a much smaller proportion going into that is going to be manageable in the end because of the way the exit dates are going to go. You know, some of our younger guys are going to stay longer. The older guys, you know, may not even wait till the 15 because, you know, they have to make that decision for themselves, and I hope we find a way to take care of them. We need to find a way to take care of them, of course, but understanding, you know, all the circumstances, fire and EMS, even the way we hired, we're still not going to look at a massive, you know, assault on the system.
I think just to recap, our request is in the eligibility requirements. We believe you should be able to enter the drop at any point after your eligibility date, 15 or 55, or if you have 25 years on. We believe the drop period should be for 5 years with no penalty for withdrawal. We agree that it's irrevocable. The fixed rate, the troopers make 6%. The LEOPS makes 4%. We're asking for at least somewhere in the middle, 6, 5. 5% we believe is more amenable. We're asking for 1% of the total number of employees to be allowed into the drop program per month, per agency, fire EMS, law enforcement, or the sheriff's office detention center.
Any thoughts, questions, comments from I'm sorry, Deb, do we have any other public comment?
No, we do not.
Okay. Chris, do we have anybody on the line for public comment?
I have no one on the line, sir.
All right, thank you very much. Now, are there any questions, concerns, or thoughts from the board?
I want to hear from HR.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would like for you to get this done as soon as possible. I mean, we have beat this around forever. I get that there's now a lot of information that probably has to be sifted through. We had hoped that we would be able to walk away today with an answer, but I think Ash and I, just in a short period of time, understand that there's going to have to be some talking that is done unless you guys can come up with an agreement today.
I think we're close in concept, concept there.
I believe, we all agree that the program's a good program. What are the nuances that we want to see put in there? But I would hope that you guys would come up with something.
We need to make a decision.
Soon. Yeah.
And we need also fiduciarily understand what the financial impact is in the different scenarios, or if there is any. But I think we should make a decision. I agree.
Can I stop you? Because if you try and do that, then you're gonna spend money on another action.
No.
Because it's going to be hard. I don't believe Christie can put these numbers in and give you an idea of what it's going to cost the system. I just simply don't believe that can happen. But she may tell you differently,
good.
but I don't believe.
Yeah, I think we need to make a quick decision, but there's enough discussion today. We owe it to the public to leave the comment period open 10 more days. So I think the decision is at earliest 2 weeks away, but I think we owe it to the public because we talked about a lot of changes today that's in the slides and you talked about before, but
I'm not going to argue with you, but we've been here for a long time discussing this. I think you get it done as soon as practically possible, and if that's today, then I think you get it done. If you can agree on some of the issues, then we've had it. Now this is the second public comment.
What's the start period?
I think one of the
We're
challenges.
asking April 1st.
I think one of the
challenges.
I'm sorry. I think one of the challenges that was brought up earlier, and I got to agree with that. It was a three-pronged discussion. We've done 2 of the 3. It's being paid into. I don't disagree with you that the public has a need for the knowledge, but I think if anybody's been paying any attention, this is the second conversation we've had on this. So it's not like this has just dropped out of thin air.
No pun intended.
That's my concern.
And if I can clarify something before we deliberate any further, in terms of the eligibility, the daylight, if you will, is who's eligible. The parameters about the years, and that hasn't changed from the initial proposal from the county. I want to make sure I understand that.
So it would be a change in the initial proposal. The county is saying that if you have 30 years or more on, you can't get into drop.
Okay.
We're saying that that may be unreasonable because we're hiring 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, and that may kick them out the door earlier. Would we be amenable to a different time period, a different year period? 35 years may capture it. So I don't know if you and I talked about that, Mike, but I think maybe 35 years. But and then that puts a total of 40 years into a job if you stayed on and maximized everything that you possibly could, putting you at almost 60 years old. So I don't think that's horrible. But at 30 years, it's kind of caused us a little bit of consternation because you'd be in your late 40s, 48 years old, 49 years old, and then we're pretty much kicking people out the door at that age. And I think there's still quite a few more years that we could keep them and retain them. So, so there is a little difference in that.
Yeah, thank you, Sheriff. That was my point of my question. I was trying to just look at the numbers associated with what quote unquote anyone really meant. I mean, those aren't your words, those are mine. So, all right, no, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. We appreciate your time.
Oh,
Did you have
I'm
any?
sure.
Yes, sir.
I do have one last question. This actually was segued by Commissioner Guerin just a second ago. So, for me, I'm not so much concerned about how old somebody is going into this or how many years, right? I'm more concerned about their physical fitness and competency and ability to do the job another 5 years. So I'm imagining that there is some kind of I don't know, test or evaluation of somebody's fitness to allow them to stay on for another 5 years.
Yeah, so, I mean, the fire department does physicals every year, mandatory. We do mandatory fitness testing every year, running, push-ups, the whole 9 yards. So we do that annually. So, yeah, I mean.
Okay, because I mean, somebody could be 48 and say, okay, I've had enough and I'm not doing so great. Somebody could be 60 and could still be running laps around the 48-year-old, so.
I see it. You guys had a bailiff that was here named Tom Hoffa, worked for me until he was 80, worked over here until he was 85, and the guy could shoot a gnat off a bull's ass from about 50 yards away. And so, and I swear to God he could. So, I mean, it's a relative, age is relative, right, to the person that's there. So I think that in the business, you know when it's time. You know when it's time. And so, yeah, I think you know when it's time.
All right, I just wanted to make sure, because I mean, I don't want to exclude somebody because of age, so.
Well, that's an important point for the public to know, and that's obviously the case, and there's a lot of evaluation taking place.
Yeah, there's a ton of
obviously.
that that's
I mean,
being done. Yeah. And we have mechanisms with HR to do fitness for duty evaluations if we feel like someone isn't fit to continue doing the job, and we send them to the docs to look at that, so.
I've got an unrelated question that can be quick. How are the new firearms and
Fabulous.
Did Mac really outshoot you?
Yeah, she did. She's really good. Listen, these weapons are absolutely state of the art, and I've spent a lot of years doing this. The finest weapon that I've shot, the smoothest weapon that I've shot, and I'll say this publicly when I'm out. When it comes to firearms, cars, bulletproof vests, if I walk over and ask for a Cadillac, you guys ask me what the Mercedes cost, because you can't underscore the value of the finest firearm and bulletproof vest. And if you didn't get a chance, watch the state trooper that was involved in an incident down on Liberty Road 2 mornings ago. How he didn't die is beyond me, but gunpowder went into his eye. That's how close the bullet was that whizzed by his ear. And that individual was a murder suspect out of Montgomery County. So having the finest equipment and a little bit of luck helps. But these firearms and the vests that we're putting our deputies in are the finest on the market. I can't buy better weapons. So I appreciate the fact that they were funded that way. And anytime the 5 of you want to come out, except for Tim, if 5 of you want to come out and shoot these things, what attorney can shoot a gun? So, I mean, you're welcome to come to the range and hang out with us.
And your example was a good one. The second example, the first one of the Mercedes and the Cadillac, don't use that again, because they're both good, you know?
Yeah, they're
the other
okay.
good.
I know what you drive, Susan, but it's.
I love my car. I don't need a Mercedes or Cadillac.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks.
Chrissy, do you want to come back up too?
Commissioners, while we're waiting, this is one of the ordinances that cannot be adopted until 10 days after the public hearing.
Okay, so
Under
cannot
the local
be.
government article,
Okay.
we can adopt pensions and amendments, but if you're under that section, you have to wait the 10 days prior to adopting it.
Okay.
But if we leave the public record open, that doesn't extend it.
No, you could schedule this, I anticipated you scheduling it for 2 weeks, not necessarily even taking public comment anymore and acting on it.
Okay.
What I anticipate, though, means nothing. I mean, it's up to you all.
So entirely up to you if you want me to respond to some of the items here, if you'd like me to do so to you via email or in the next meeting. But I think, this is obviously your decision to make on the plan. The proposals that we put forward are ones that, I looked at various plans across the country, trying to come up with something that I thought would be a good first start for the county, being that we don't have this type of program before. And really looking at the plan as it is, we currently have only 36 retirees in the county's public safety pension plan. So it's not a large number of retirees currently in the plan. If the individuals enter the drop, the more that enter, the less contributions that are going into the plan. So as they enter drop, they stop contributing to the pension. We start putting the funds into their drop plan, so there is less income going into the plan. When we did the actuarial study, Commissioner Krebs, there were different assumptions that were used. So the assumption that the contributions would continue was used, as well as a higher interest rate. So 4.5% was used on the assumptions. So really, this has been a, kind of put together what seems to make sense. We didn't think that those things that were put in the actuarial study were of interest to the commissioners, so we changed that, and we did pay for that actuarial study. I don't have the spreadsheet, so they gave us a report, told us where they got their assumptions and what that number was. I simply can't go in and just change the numbers. I wish I was that good, but I'm not. So that's where it stands right now. Like I said, this is your decision. We will institute anything that you tell us to do. The reason we went with the 3-year drop was because we were doing a 5-year look back. So, 5 years we wanted to look at it again. So we didn't want to do a 5-year the same amount of time that we wanted to look at it, because we want to be able to, say this is how it has affected us for those individuals that have gone in for 3 years. So that was the reason for the 3-year. The 30 years was something that we proposed, and, the sheriff and I had talked about that, and maybe I misunderstood, but I thought he was on board with that. So since then, maybe that thought has changed from him. Again, we're just putting out there what we think makes sense and that what we can handle as a department. We do not have an electronic calculator like the state does for our pension. Our system is very antiquated. I'll just use that word. What's that?
That's a good word.
Yes, antiquated. The pension plan for the public safety has changed several times over the years with regards to the multiplier. So it's not just a simple formula we can put in and calculate it out. It does take a little more time and effort. So the number of individuals that are going into the drop each month, 3, along with the county pension people that are going in there, can we handle that? I can't answer that because I don't know what's all going to go into it yet.
So, Christy, on that note, and it's been suggested by everybody we've heard from so far, and as well as us, the idea of an annual review of the system, right? Let's say we make changes or request changes to be made today. And one of those changes that certainly I would like to see, no matter what, is to see some kind of review to make sure that we are proceeding at a good pace, right? I mean, we're obviously, if we have to, if there's an emergency situation some years down the road, we could make changes if we had to. But if the system is working, and it's working the way that we anticipate it should, we certainly want to be bolstered of that understanding that it is functioning appropriately. And certainly would, I think, lay some of the concerns that maybe you guys have, and maybe some of the concerns that some of my colleagues have had too. So we could do an annual.
Yeah, so we do an annual evaluation of the plan regardless. We have to do that every year. So, we do that so that we can budget appropriately. And if I start talking budgets, I'm really out of my realm. So, we do that every year. So the actuary comes back and gives us information on how our plans are doing based on the number of individuals in the plan and the contributions and the return and all that other stuff. So we do that every year. This
Okay.
would, the time that we've put into the proposal was really to just take an in-depth look at the drop in particular, but we will see an overall whether or not the plan is how the plan is doing every year.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
So the 3-year thing is because you want it to be cut off because you want to be able to evaluate it. That's not really, so you could move to 5 years after that. But so I get both sides of that. That's more of an administrative thing for the look back.
Right.
And also you mentioned about the administration on the processing of claims, which, so would it be better for that particular issue that you do 1% a year versus 10 in a year? Because all 10 could come at the same time. Does that matter for that?
It's really up to you. We're not, I mean, it does not, we don't know what it's going to take. So whether you say 1% a year or, 1% a month or 10 a year, we'll deal with whatever,
So that's
has to happen.
not as big of a burden. So on all these things that they want to change, is there one that's more troublesome than the other if you change it because of uncertainty, if you had to pick something?
If I had to pick something, and I do not work in that field, so, this is me looking at it from an outsider. It's the no penalty for leaving the drop outside of the time you said you were going to stay. I think, I understand situations change and I understand circumstances might change, but you are committing to the county for 3-5 years, whatever the drop period ends up being. And I think for you to just be able to say, 2 years in, my wife's moving to Florida and I want to go with her, those are things you've committed to us. We know that we have 3 years to train the next captain or lieutenant coming on, that, that's something that I think is probably the one thing that I think there should be some skin in the game.
So that's the only real reason.
That's-
So the sheriff would have to deal with that, filling that slot.
Sheriff or fire EMS, which
You also
is-
don't want somebody that's unwilling, that doesn't really want to be there. That
Agreed.
maybe-
There's both sides of it.
Okay,
And,
okay.
fire EMS is our responsibility. So, we're hiring for that. So it's both sides of it. And I do see both sides of it. But ultimately, our staff, Carrie, does the lion's share of the work. We know we're going to have to deal with the drop, and we will certainly do that and do whatever your wishes are. I think we have beaten this.
No, I do, we just want you to know, we value all of your opinions. We're just trying to put the package together and see what works for everybody. Thank you.
Off the top of my head, and we can't make a decision today, I wouldn't mind the period be 30 or 35 or whatever. I don't think unlimited. The 3%, this money goes the same place this pension money goes?
Goes into the account.
And what's that?
Goes into the account.
Yeah.
Yes.
So who knows what that account's made over the last 4 or 5 years?
We can give you an overall pension.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Yeah, that's the full bucket, though, not individual or smaller amounts.
Yeah, I think, off the top of my head, 3% might be a hair low. 7% is pie in the sky. That people aren't making that, right? I can't be political. Other than the last president, inflation wasn't that much. But this should be a hair more than inflation. You should get, you should get more than just what inflation cost you, I think.
And I think I'd just go back to the comment I made about how LEOPS is calculating it. Just saying 4% is really not how it's being calculated. It's on
Exactly.
a lower amount at the beginning of the year,
understand.
2%,
Yeah.
and then 2% on another amount. So,
That might
where that
be
meets in the middle.
3.3 or something. Yes,
be.
I understand. And I do think they need to have skin in the game. It's a decision you need to make, and I can't imagine too many decisions I've had that, okay, what's the upside, this, and this, what's the downside? Oh, 0, because you don't have any skin in the game. I struggle with that. And I understand why you're asking. I don't blame you for asking, but that's my opinion so far. But
And I
would
think
like
that
to
plays
see-
into the term. So if you're gonna have a forfeiture provision in there, then maybe a 3-year term makes more sense. But if you're not gonna have the forfeiture provision in there, then it really doesn't matter the term of the
Yep.
drop. So I think they kind of go hand in hand.
Yep.
Just to clarify though, you said originally the term for 30 to 35. Do you mean the age limit?
Yeah, the
Or
age
service,
limit
I'm
or
sorry,
the
the service
number-
limit?
number of
Okay,
service
okay.
years.
I just wanted to make sure I understood.
Yeah, I couldn't retire at age 30, but
Right.
after 30 years,
Yes.
maybe.
Any other thoughts, comments, or questions from members of the board? So I have one, I guess, question as far as the potential for a penalty. If somebody was in drop program, right, and again, I may have missed it in the legislation that we have in front of us. So if I did miss the specific area, please do let me know. If there was some kind of penalty attached to it about leaving the program early, if it was for a reason that was beyond the control of the individual, family medical issue or personal medical, something of that sort, right? Is that something that would be is that an allowable exception, in other words? Are there exemptions for penalties that might be accrued by somebody for leaving early if a penalty was implemented?
Yeah, so the only time the penalty is implemented is if it's voluntary separation. If the individual has a line of duty disability, or if there's, God forbid, a death, we wouldn't penalize the plan to their beneficiary in regards to the line of death, the line of duty death, I'm sorry. The other reason that they would not get penalized is if they would be involuntarily terminated from employment by the employer. So that would be another reason that we would not penalize them. So if they were terminated by the sheriff, being that he's an elected official, and Maryland is an at-will state, we can take action as we need to. So,
Right, and I do see the sections about line of duty death and termination and everything.
no other specific exceptions are in the.
All right, because I do take the point about life happening, right? And I certainly wouldn't want to penalize somebody if there was some kind of serious medical family exigency that compelled them to leave drop. As Commissioner Kyler said, I'm certainly amenable to changes, right, in this. But I want to make sure that if the board decides to go in the direction of some kind of penalty, that we do create some kind of I don't want to say flexibility, but a process or some kind of way to ensure that there are going to be exemptions for individuals who things are out of their control. I know it's a very vague way to describe it, but I don't want to, penalize somebody because your wife has cancer, or because your children have some medical condition that necessitates you leaving drop early. If that makes sense, if I'm explaining that correctly.
Yeah, I certainly understand what you're saying, and appreciate you mentioning that it is vague, and that's very difficult to administer. Depending on who's going to make that decision. The individuals that are in the positions that would make that decision now could be completely different from the individuals who would make that decision 5 years down the road. So that's where my challenge would come in. We obviously can't list every situation that we think it would apply to.
Right.
So then how do you handle those gray areas, and how do you deal with, I think that's a situation that it should be, for the forfeit should not apply to, and Carrie thinks it's one that it should apply to. So I think we need to, if we're gonna do that, I don't know how we do that. So we need to really be able to figure out how we deal with those gray areas, because I think that's gonna cause a problem in the future. And I'm just being honest.
Right. Well, and I guess what I'm getting to is that does it make more sense not to have the penalty then, because there are so many exigent circumstances that could contribute to somebody leaving drop, or other than I'm bored of this and I want to go to Florida.
I think that you're getting your pension amount. That's the amount you're going to get. You're getting the cost of living adjustments. And I'll say this and probably will regret it later, but a 4% forfeiture or whatever that amount is on my pension really doesn't make up for me having to make that difficult choice and move to Florida or deal with a family member that's ill. I would pick the family member every time.
It's also nominal on the county side. Both ways.
Any other thoughts, comments, or Commissioner?
I'm
Okay.
ready to make a
My
motion.
thought is that we put this on this agenda for 2 weeks from now. Is that enough time?
Well, either way, we have to have, if we, whatever we do, we need 10 days, I think, Tim, is what you
That's
said.
2 weeks. That's what I'm saying,
Okay.
2 weeks is
Okay.
14
All right.
days. Joe, 14. That would give us the time for the 10 days, unless you, I just want to get a definitive time we're putting it on, whether you want it 14 days or 21 days. Just pick a time so we know to put it back.
Well, I think Commissioner Guerin, you had a motion, you said? Okay.
I'd like to make a motion. I motion that the Board of County Commissioners adopt the following provisions to the Deferred Retirement Option Plan, and then move to close the public hearing. In terms of eligibility, that we increase eligibility to 35 years and that anyone can enter the program. The drop period is for 5 years at a fixed interest rate of 5%, that there is no penalty for early withdrawal, and that the number of participants be allowed 1% of the workforce to enter the program each month.
Second.
I thought we just said we couldn't do that.
Well, so we have a motion.
Did you say we can't do that?
You need to wait 10 days after the public hearing to adopt it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that, but, I mean, we had two options: to recommend a motion and close the public hearing or extend the public hearing. So I was just making a motion on
But I think
recommendations.
the first option's wrong. I don't think.
Is your
it's
first option wrong?
legal. I think our choice is leave the public record open or not, but we have to wait 2 weeks to make the decision.
So 10 days essentially being 2 weeks, because that's our cycle.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
if that's the case, I've made my motion. I will, if that's the case, I will withdraw it. It will be back in 2 weeks, I can assure you that.
Yep.
All right. So you want to restate the motion for 2 weeks from now?
Draw your motion.
Is it withdrawing the motion?
Well, couldn't you
could amend-
technically,
You could amend the motion.
well, couldn't you pause it for 2 weeks?
I guess so.
Matter. Just, you want to start fresh with something. You don't want to leave it out
You
there.
withdrew it, right?
Okay, if that's what I have to do.
So, yeah, so I think.
I didn't want to leave any question as to where I stand,
Well,
what we
no,
want to do, but I
that's
understand we
great.
have to wait.
So I'd like to make a motion that the staff, the staff will leave the public record open for 10 days, and we will put this on our agenda in 2 weeks.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second to return this to the agenda in 2 weeks. Is there any further discussion?
My only discussion is I don't see Commissioner Guerin changing his mind in 2 weeks.
You can make us more confident.
So,
Prior to you.
so before we go to a vote, my own one point of discussion would be, do we want to see the suggestions that Commissioner Guerin has proposed reflected in what comes before us in 2 weeks for the point of discussion?
I do.
I do, because I didn't write it all down.
Okay,
So I
I-
don't know what you really said, but I know what I think I'm going, but I didn't write what you said down. So just send an email and say, what did you?
So
I will.
Commissioner Kyler, are you okay with the friendly amendment to include the changes that Commissioner Guerin would like to see for discussion in 2 weeks?
Not putting an amendment, we're just going to send it
No,
out.
I think we
So
want HR to look at the things he discussed and.
Okay, but I want to make sure
Be on the
that,
agenda in 2 weeks, and we'll have a discussion.
I want to make, yeah, okay, but I guess what I'm getting to is I want to make sure that we encapsulate that in whatever action we take. That we are making sure staff is going to look at what Commissioner Guerin has suggested.
Well, and I've asked about what
okay.
interest they earn, and I don't agree there should be no skin in it. We've all talked a bunch of stuff, and
Okay,
I
I just-
understand it, but
Okay.
I don't think that needs to be part of the motion.
Okay,
Why
I
don't
just,
why don't we ask her, Christie, to come back with what you just recommended, just put it in writing, and then you can just comment on that, and then if you have anything you want them to comment on specifically and say, these are outstanding issues, have the public
Just put
comment.
those as the
And then we'll
options,
get to look at them and have a think about them, and then when we come back, we'll be ready to we'll have our questions answered by the time we come back.
right, and again, I just wanted to make sure that everybody's concerns are being looked at.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah,
so-
we got 2 weeks to email and
Okay.
ask more questions, and, yep.
all right,
And
is there-
I apologize for the briefing paper. That's my fault. I didn't realize you didn't have the option
It's quite all right.
Yeah.
That's all right, that's all right.
make a vote today.
So, is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody. So up next, item number 4, contract award for Piney Run Park Pavilion 3, paving RFB number 36F at 52526.
These guys were giving the Police Accountability Board a run for their money with their 3-minute comment.
It's okay, we're setting up something new, and it's good to ask the questions. It's a-
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
The Office of Procurement in cooperation with the Department of Recreation and Parks requests your approval to award a contract for the Piney Run Park Pavilion 3 paving project to MT Laney Company Incorporated in the amount of $58,072. The Department of Recreation and Parks solicited bids on the county's e-procurement platform Public Purchase and received 6 responses. The amount is within the FY26 adopted budget.
It's a rather modest paving project that will support the future replacement of Pavilion 3 at Piney Run Park.
I move the Board of Commissioners award a contract for the Piney Run Pavilion number 3 paving project to MT Laney Company Incorporated in the amount of $58,072.
I'll second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Love that it ended up being somebody local, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the same thing.
And
There's a lot of interest in it, too. A lot of interest.
Up next, approval to purchase a dust collecting system. Oh, wait, did I skip one again?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Well House. Well House.
I always seem to skip number 5.
Yep.
Contract award for engineering services for the Fairhaven Well House radionuclide project. Did I say that right? Radionuclide?
You
All right,
did.
awesome.
The Office of Procurement, in cooperation with the Division of Utilities, requests your approval to award a contract for engineering services for the Fairhaven Wellhouse Radionuclide Pilot Project in Commissioner District 5 to CDM Smith of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, in the amount of $84,200. This award will be made via competitively bid term contract. The proposal amount is within the adopted budget.
Good morning, Commissioners. During a previous evaluation of equipment and treatment upgrade needs at the Fairhaven Well House, utilities and consultant staff identified radionuclide concentrations in groundwater source exceeding Maryland Department of the Environment drinking water standards. The well has remained out of service while staff evaluates the appropriate treatment approach. Restoring the source to service is important in maintaining some system redundancy. Consultant staff evaluated the available treatment options and identified zeolite media filtration as a proven and widely used treatment technology for the radionuclide removal in public groundwater systems. This proposed pilot project will allow utilities and consultant staff to work with the Maryland Department of the Environment and the zeolite filtration vendor to evaluate treatment under Fairhaven's groundwater conditions and to establish final design criteria before committing capital funds to permanent construction improvements. The pilot will confirm whether these levels can be consistently reduced below threshold limits and will generate the operational data needed to establish the treatment sizing and costs. The approval of the pilot program obviously will not commit the county to future construction. It allows staff to develop the information necessary to return to the board at a future date with a defined approach, including the scope of work and the costs. This approach will allow the county to restore an existing water supply asset while minimizing financial and operational risk. So we are requesting your formal approval to proceed with the pilot test program at this time.
And I think it's important for people who are listening, because everyone's very focused on this issue of PFAS. We're not talking about PFAS. We're talking about radionuclides, which is it's a natural process that occurs, if my understanding.
That is correct.
With water. It's not something that's in the ground seeping in. It's not related to radon or anything of the sort. And I think that's important for people to know if they're listening. Okay.
So why does it need to be tested? What is it? I understand what you're saying it's natural, but why are we testing it? Is it something that's not, it could be harmful? And
It's part of, it's part of the overall MDE testing requirements for groundwater sources. So
but is it because it's something that could be harmful?
I would imagine in high levels and so forth.
I didn't know if it was a new thing we had to worry about.
There's always something new to worry about.
It's not PFAS. So, how much do we pull out of that well per day? Is it significant or is it meaningful?
It's a very large well. We have the ability of pulling upwards of 200,000 gallons per day once the well comes back online.
And we do pull from there every day?
The well is offline right now,
But when it's online?
in the past,
I
yes.
didn't even realize that we had that online. I know we talked about it years and years ago, but So it is, okay. All right, I move that the Commissioners award a contract for engineering services for the Fairhaven Wellhouse radionuclide pilot program to CDM Smith in the amount of $84,200.
Second. We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion?
Yes. So this was a term contract. Did you ask more than one, or was this pretty clear that they were doing it? Is this a specialty type item or not really?
So with the engineering services, it is considered a professional service. So we have 3 or 4 of them on deck. So what we do is we call the 4 of them, especially the ones that we know will focus more on said particular professional service, get quotes from them. So we reach out to our term contractors because it's under the threshold.
So did you ask them all, or you
Oh,
asked
that I don't
this
know,
one
Andy.
because this was their area of expertise?
We did not ask all of them. We have 4 on contract, and each,
Gotcha.
we're comfortable with certain aspects of each of the 4 individual firms.
Good, thank you.
Is there any further discussion?
How long is this going to take, do you think?
The test pilot program will last approximately 6 months.
And why do you call it a pilot?
Because it's a smaller version of what could be the ultimate treatment process. It's small filters as opposed to large room-sized filters.
And would you expect it at other wellheads, or is this like unique because of where it's located?
That's a very good question. We really
Okay.
do not know.
I don't like any of these new words because they all have dollar signs next to them.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Now we're going to talk about dust collecting system. Again, I apologize for skipping ahead by one item.
Morning.
Good morning. Morning.
The Office of Procurement, in cooperation with the Division of Facilities, request your approval to award the purchase and installation of a dust collection system for the wood shop at the Maintenance Center. This is a turnkey project for Nichols Contracting in the amount of $105,000. Nichols Contracting was awarded a competitively bid contract through Howard County that Carroll County will utilize. This amount is approved in the FY26 budget.
Morning, Commissioners. Nichols Contracting will design and install a new dust collecting system for our facility out at the Maintenance Center in our wood shop. The shop currently operates with no dust collecting system. We do have a portable one that we pull around when needed to, but that's not ideal. The installation will be properly engineered and designed for all the proper tools we have in that facility, which then will prolong our equipment that we have in there, remove all the particles, eliminate the risk of the safety factor of particles in the air being airborne. So overall, this is definitely a well-needed asset to the facility.
Any comments, questions, or concerns from the board?
I move that the Board of Commissioners approve the purchase and installation of a dust collection system for the Maintenance Center to Nicholas Contracting in the amount of $105,000.
Second. We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Up next, grant approval to submit application and acceptance of award for Advancing Workforce Mobility and Ascend Partnership. Good morning to you both.
Good morning. Denise Beaver, Director of Economic Development, and I have Scott Singleton here, who's our business consultant with the Carroll County Workforce Development Center. And we are always looking for funding opportunities that are creative and will help us to serve the citizens of Carroll County better. And we came across two just very recently, and it was a quick turnaround time frame. So we did put together a grant application to submit for the Advancing Workforce Mobility and the Ascend Partnership. And it's to address some issues in the workplace where there are some new federal requirements for SNAP and Medicaid participants to do more workforce activities while they're receiving benefits is the primary one. And it does have some really good opportunity to put in kind of like a demonstration project that can be followed along and demonstrate that helping these people to address and I guess, identify their transferable skills helps them to be better employed. So that's what it's all about. Scott's here if you have some other questions about what we propose to do with the funding. But the first one, the $250,000 one, I'd say is kind of a long shot, for us to get. But if you don't dream big and reach high, you never have the opportunity to go there. So,
I respect the effort.
Yeah. So they put together a proposal to do that. We've had this program over there, Workplace Skills Essentials, I think is what the program is that they're going to use. And I think it's a really good program, and this will help other staff to be trained in that if we are awarded the funding, and will help us to get people to identify what their transferable skills are and actually document those. So, and then the other project has some applicability for veterans, helping veterans. And I know Heather had said, she said, if you've ever seen a military record of service, it's, usually like 20 pages long and looks like it's Greek, and, you can't figure out what is it that are their real skills, and this would help to transfer some of those skills. So they're both kind of pilot projects, and, it's an opportunity we thought we would take advantage of applying for, and hopefully if we get it, we'll turn it into something good.
So the first one's more of a long shot, you think?
Yes,
And the second
yes.
one,
The second one is $30,000, and that would go to the Workforce Board, Carroll County Workforce Board, and that one is specifically with veterans, right? That one's with the veterans. We're a small cohort of maybe 3 to 5 people. So working with them, working with a specific business, which we already have one in mind that we would work with to kind of transfer, again, those veteran skills and get them some training to get them out of the military mode and into the workforce today.
I move the Board of Commissioners approve the submission of grant and partnership applications and acceptance of the award under the Advancing Workforce Mobility Initiative.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second, but I have a question.
Okay.
I seconded it, but I just have a question.
Yes, of course, yes.
There was something I sent you yesterday, it came out from the state of Maryland. We all got it. It's a grant that has to come pretty quick
Apprenticeships.
for the apprenticeships. And it seemed like a grant that you didn't have to keep repeating if it didn't work. But would that be something you could put with this to make sure, it sounded like it was something, the money they had to get rid of very quickly, which is good, but the apprenticeships get them in place and it pays them while they're there so
Yes.
that the employer doesn't have to pay them. And that might be an opportunity to align some of these programs. I just wish I forwarded it to you. I didn't know who else to give it to, but it seems like a quick turnaround. But these apprenticeship programs, even if we help employers to incentivize them to take our students, and this could be, if we would get something like this, one of these programs, then maybe they could move into an internship. And I'm always looking at how many jobs do we get out of it? How many people
Right.
finish the program and then we're successfully employed? That
Right.
to me is. this
Yeah,
is-
actually, Scott coordinates the apprenticeship group that we've been running through the Workforce Center over the last couple of years. And so we're really hitting that hard with the businesses as well as the job seekers. So I don't know. You can be assured that the Workforce Center and our administration and staff weave together any funding sources that they can get that can come into the center to make it all work.
Well, this
So-
seemed like it came out yesterday,
Yeah.
and it's a quick
Yeah.
turnaround. So just pay attention to it, because sometimes they just need to get the money out the door and put it in, because I know we
Right.
do it. We can get some funding for it.
Yep.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So I don't know if you want to add anything else
I
about the
mean, make sure, I just
apprenticeship,
sent it to Denise. I just picked up on it.
Yeah, apprenticeship is always going to be something that we're talking to businesses about, the earn and learn opportunity and developing the pipeline. It's not just youth apprenticeship, it's adult apprenticeship. It's across a lot of different industries. You think of the traditional apprenticeships like electrical or plumbing or HVAC, but it is across all industries. You can do apprenticeships in accounting, HR, office professional, it's healthcare, it's endless. So we're talking to businesses. It's great when we can kind of attach an incentive for businesses to do this, in addition to developing their talent pipeline, but helping to pay for some of the costs for the training and whatnot, and having good training providers like Carroll Community College. So we're kind of the connector of all of these resources for both the businesses and the folks that are looking for the career opportunities.
And a lot of people offer the unpaid apprenticeships, which are helpful, but some folks have to bring in some money, even if it's students or even adults while they're doing it. So it relieves the business from having to take a risk on somebody, and then a lot of times they like the person, and then they hire them. So it's a great opportunity, and you guys do a nice job with it.
Thank you.
So I'm curious, so I know the federal government has strengthened requirements for SNAP benefits and Medicaid, which I agree with wholeheartedly, particularly since the state of Maryland, I feel, has been so sort of corrupt in their management of SNAP benefits to the tune of $200 million. So I'm just kind of curious, the grant is possible through Walmart. Is this a direct response to those requirements being strengthened, or has this program always been in existence, and it's strictly through Walmart? It's not. Is it going through the state and Walmart, or is this just strictly
Not through the state. I think it's
This is
just,
just a
they're the
private-
funder, and then there's a nonprofit,
Okay.
that is administering it as a demonstration grant. And I think it is in response to the new federal requirements for SNAP and Medicaid recipients, so that we can help them more, support them in making this transition. So
into the
some may
workforce.
just decide, it's too much work, I'm not doing it, and then they'll lose their benefits. But, for those that want to, there'll be some support out there through programs like this.
strengthens their opportunity
Yes.
to enter the work world and therefore be right.
We know there's a hidden pool of talent that's out there that just is kind of the disconnected worker that's unable to find their career because of the gap in skills, but also in analyzing what their skills are and informing the employer. And so this is important for anyone that maybe has had a gap in employment. And so the SNAP recipients is a good example, but we have a term for it called returnship. It's for anyone that is returning to work after an extended period off, whether that be military service or someone who is a caregiver to family or a friend or whatever the scenario. So this type of grant is really highly effective in helping that individual to identify skills and to help the employer understand that. And it is through the Education Design Lab, so they are the nonprofit, and Walmart is pretty much the funding source. And we have great partners that are utilizing technology and state-of-the-art software to assist, but it's also the personal coaching that will provide for these individuals that haven't worked for a long time. One of the key things that we look at, and when we check out the data on workforce, is the workforce participation rate. And it can vary. It can be in the lower 60 percentile or high 50%. And we're concerned because that rate is dropping. And of course, the higher participation rate is better for the entire system. And so those are the gaps that when businesses say we can't find the people, and there's, again, the disconnect of there's people, but we just need to prepare them, and we need to make sure the employer understands that they have skills. We just need to provide some additional training and assistance.
Any other thoughts, questions, or comments from the board? Hearing none, we have a motion, we have a second. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
very
Thank you,
much.
Commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yep.
Up next, we have public comment. Deb, do we have?
Tell Heather we didn't miss her.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say.
I knew.
She's in Annapolis, so she had to
I
go
knew.
testify for the Maryland
Right.
Workforce Association.
I was going to start it by saying, you're not Heather.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Deb,
We do not.
No one here for public. Chris, do we have anybody on the line for public comment?
Yes, sir, we do. We have a caller. Caller, if you could please identify yourself and give us your address. You'll have 3 minutes. Use *6 to unmute, please.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Catherine Adelaide, a member of the Carroll County Republican Central Committee, your voice in the Republican Party in Carroll County. It's election time. I will give a little pitch. I want to congratulate Commissioner Krebs on her number 8 grandchild. I'm also have 3 grandchildren and waiting for my first great-grandchild in August. So it's the cherry on the top of my pro-life cake. Children are a gift from God, and we need all of them. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to start with Carroll County Republican Central Committee report very quick. We have our monthly meeting tonight, We'll be meeting at the Winfield Firehouse to set up for our breakfast. We'll have a quick meeting to approve some minutes, but we're very excited about the legislative breakfast coming up on Saturday, February 28th. We look forward to seeing you all. Pretty much, I think we only have a few tickets left. We've got a great crowd coming out. It's just going to be a wonderful time to support our legislators and to, really give them the kudos that they need and educate ourselves. Our next meeting will be Thursday, March 26th. Moving on to my pro-life report. Let me back up for a second because I did have two constituent texts and a call on the pension item that came up. Thank you for leaving the record open. Please, whenever there's an opportunity to leave the record open, I actually was trying to get on to give their message, and he had already asked for public comment. So please leave that record open. Probably nobody's going to die in 10 days from leaving a public record open. So I really appreciate that because I did get a text and a phone call on that issue. So I'll have them take care of that. Okay, back to Maryland Right to Life. The great, wonderful news is assisted suicide is dead, pun intended, for 2026. The deadline for filing new bills has passed now. And this is just a great pro-life victory for this year. It's really just a miracle. Thank you for your prayers. They have been answered. But we also have some very other bad bills. Go to Maryland Right to Life. They're trying to bring forth an infanticide bill. We need people to testify against that. Our Carroll County Right to Life, we're getting ready for the breakfast. Our next meeting is March 19th by Zoom. And finally, I'm going to give a quick election integrity report. The candidate filing deadline has now passed, Tuesday, February 24th. I just want to say congratulations and thank you for all the candidates who are running in Carroll County. We appreciate your sacrifice and we're wishing you all well. We're here to help you. We remain and when it's a contested primary, we don't take sides, we don't endorse. We're here to help everybody, our Republicans in the party. But you have to be registered Republican to vote for the Carroll County Republican Central Committee members. So if you're not registered Republican, you won't be able to vote for us. So you can do that online. Thank you. That's it for me. God bless.
Thank you very much. Chris, is there anybody else on the line for public comment?
That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
All right, we will move into administrative session open. Does anybody have anything for admin open today? Hearing none, I need a motion to approve the closed minutes for legal from February 19th, 2026.
So moved.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Minutes are passed. We will now move into agenda review for week number 1, the week of Monday, March 2nd. Rural Counties Coalition with Commissioner Kyler on Monday, March 2nd. Tuesday, March 3rd shows nothing. Wednesday, March 4th, MACO Education Subcommittee with Commissioner Kyler and a tentative MACO Legislative Committee with Commissioner Kyler. Thursday, March 5th, 2026, Board of Commissioners open session beginning at 9 a.m. Item number 1, FY27 Drug Treatment Court Grant Application Submission and Award with Judge Hecker. Item number 2, Priority Carroll, followed by item number 3, Legislative Update with Pam. Item number 4, Budget Overview Presentation with Ted. Item number 5, request to approve to enter into a payment in lieu of taxes agreement for the residences at Hampstead School operated by Wynn Companies. Item number 6, briefing discussion decision for City of Westminster annexation number 88, Route 309. Item number 7, discussion decision approval of the FY 2027 Consolidated Transportation Plan County Priority Letter. Item number 8, request approval to submit the application and accept the award for the FY 27 Youth and Family Engagement Diversion Program. Item number 9, contract award for Behavioral Health Diversion Initiative for the Youth and Family Engagement Diversion Program for the Department of Juvenile Services. Followed by public comment, administrative open, and then agenda review. And then at 6:30 p.m., there is a billboard consolidation discussion occurring at Carroll County Public Library in Finksburg, and Commissioner Krebs will be attending that.
And I want to mention something,
Sure,
just so
yeah.
the public knows it. That was supposed to meet on another day. The rescheduling was not very transparent, and I'm actually out of town. And Finksburg, I initiated the request to do this meeting, but I can't be there.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Friday, March 6th shows nothing. Saturday, March 7th shows nothing. Sunday, March 8th, Commissioner Krebs has the podcast. Are there any changes, alterations, or amendments to the first week?
I just have a question. On the one agenda item on payment in lieu of taxes, it's about this one issue. Oh, that's the pilot, I'm sorry.
Correct.
Payment in lieu of
Yeah.
taxes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out about payment in lieu of, in general, if we, and I can ask Ted, if if people have to come before us for those things. This is for taxes, but others is just, instead of doing something, are they in the same posture, they come in front of us? I'll talk to you offline. I just see the payment in lieu of, and I just,
It's a complicated process.
Okay.
But they do have to make the request to the commission.
for any kind of payment in lieu of, okay.
Initiate it ourselves.
Okay.
Okay, anything else for the first week? All right, week of Monday, March 9th. Transit Advisory Council with Commissioner Kyler on Monday, March 9th. Tuesday, March 10th, Ag Center Board Meeting, Commissioner Gordon and that's the dinner or the board meeting?
That's
I
the
think
board
it's-
meeting.
That's the board meeting? or the
Yeah, I'm gonna
dinner?
be there as well.
Okay.
They
all right.
call it their board meeting dinner.
Okay, all right. So yes, Commissioner Gordon and myself will be present at that. Wednesday, March 11th, Mako Education Subcommittee with Commissioner Kyler, 9:30 a.m. Farm Museum, I'm sorry?
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Farm Museum Board Meeting, myself. Historical Society of Carroll County Board Meeting with Commissioner Gordon. Town Hall, or Commissioner Guerin has his town hall that evening at 6 p.m. at Mount Airy Senior Center. Thursday, March 12th, 9 o'clock a.m., open session for the Board of County Commissioners. Item number 1, Priority Carroll, Carroll County Public Network Broadband for All Smart 20 Awards recipient. Item number 2, legislative update with Pam. Item number 3, consideration of the annual plan for fiscal year 2026 of the Carroll County Bureau of Housing, followed by public comment, administrative session open, and agenda review. And then at 1 o'clock p.m., we will be convening for a position review committee recommendation presentation with Deb. At 5:30 p.m., the Carroll County chapter of Maryland Municipal League quarterly dinner will be occurring at Flood Zone. I will be attending that. Friday, March 13th shows nothing. Saturday, March 14th shows a ribbon cutting celebration for Ballet and Body with Commissioner Kyler. And then Sunday, March 15th, I have the podcast. Are there any changes, amendments, or alterations to our second week?
So Commissioner Kyler is going to Ballet Embody.
Yeah, they have a ribbon cutting.
Are you gonna practice? Maybe I'll come. Are you going to practice?
No, I'm going to the ribbon cutting.
I thought maybe you were gonna do some ballet.
Doing exactly what at the piece of paper.
All right, so a question. On the Municipal League, I'm gonna check that out. I didn't see that one before. I think I will be attending that.
Okay.
And then I don't know if you want this on the calendar or not, but 2 days next week I have to be, this week that you were in here, I need to be in Annapolis for the bill hearings. And I think one of them is a Thursday. I'll check with Wanda, but 2 of the days, one of them I might have to leave early.
Okay.
To get to it. Unless I can ask them to put it at the end of their day.
Well, we can certainly make accommodations on our end if we have to.
I just don't want to miss
so.
all this exciting stuff.
So is there anything else for agenda review? Wanda, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Wanda.
Now, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.